Hi guys, welcome to our 30-second live YouTube session. I'm Wayne, and this is...
I'm Lee.
So welcome to all the live audience today and to our subscribers. We're back in the tasting room again, so hopefully you can, we'll show you a little bit of the room later on, but for now you've got
or as I like to call it, the boudoir.
The boudoir. We've got a bigger session tonight, well, or not longer, we don't know that yet, but we've got 3 guests in this evening, so I'd like to welcome them all later on. But the guests we've got, Lee's put a really long introduction here, so I'll save the embarrassment, and it's it's Jager Wise, the head brewer for Wildcard.
See the bits he's not reading out is because I've put your full kind of CV down here. So multiple former brewer of the year, beer journalist, author, campaigner, and head brewer for Wildcard, and I've probably missed out a few things in that list.
So just to shorten our other guests' introductions, we've got Will Harris, the MD of Wildcard. we've got Tom Hay, who looks after the social media, or some of the social media for Patisserie Valerie. So that might feel like a little bit of a strange one. You might wonder why we've got a baker and cafe. What's you're going to have to help me off screen here. What's the official... Bakery and cafe chain with us. Well, you'll find out a little bit more about that later on when we tell you about the beer we've been brewing today and the food we've been eating today.
Yes. So, why I still feel swollen.
So we might slow our pace of drinking down because of all the food we've been eating today, but we'll tell you a bit more about that later on. So 2 beers to get out of the fridge now, please, because they'll warm up and they'll taste much, much better. We've got the 2 different variants of Tonkoko, so vegan Tonkoko and Empress Tonkoko. So if you take them out of the fridge now, give them a chance to warm up. We'll tell you more about the flavours later on. And if you like this video, make sure that you subscribe and press the like button. So the cheesy thing we always forget to talk about, but click like, subscribe to follow us on YouTube, and hopefully we'll get...
And we usually get a thumbs up from Pete.
Thumbs up from Pete.
That's the bit he really wants us to say. Like the video, hit subscribe.
Keep going.
Yeah. Right, so running order. So the first beer we're going to be doing this time is a beer called Hopbusters, which is a New Zealand hopped New England IPA, coming in at 5.8. It's a collab with Salt beer. We're then going on to the latest in the Sweet Shop series. We're going to be doing Fizzy Watermelonz, which is a 4.8% watermelon sour. We're then following that up with a vegan version of Tonkoko. So we've been doing a big focus on low and no and vegan beers to begin the year. So we've taken our iconic Tonkoko beer, stripped out the lactose, popped in some malted extract, which is what you make candy floss from. I'm going to be very interested to hear how you think that stands up against the original. I think it's different, but different in a good way. So
you're giving all the good
look forward to
what we're going to talk about later.
Hear what you're going to say later. And then we're going to conclude with the annual release from the Tonkoko series, which is the one we called Empress Tonkoko, which we also barrel age each time. And for those of you that subscribe to the gold box, you got all 3 variants of the barrel age this year, which was Heaven Hill Bourbon, Buffalo Trace Bourbon, and for the first year, we have done rum, which I don't know why we hadn't done that before, because coconut and rum, what a pairing. That's, obvious. Should have done that a while ago. So as always, with each beer, we're going to be going through the concept behind it, the name, the recipe, anything that's unique about the brewing techniques, etc. And we need this to be as interactive as possible. It will be more entertaining for you. It will be more entertaining for us. So we need you to get your questions in. In the room, you've got bits of paper and pen. Write down your question, hold your hand up, someone will collect it. It'll make its way to the front.
Joe's got a question.
Online, you are able to just write below this video, and we have someone monitoring the feed, and they will collate the most sensible and censored questions and bring them forward to us later on. Okay. So we are also going to be covering some specialist subjects. As always, we start out with highlights. We'll then be going on to what we brewed today, and we're going to have the guys from Wildcard on camera, and they're going to tell you a bit about Wildcard, the brewery. We're also doing a little bit on Patisserie Valerie this time around. And then because Jager is an icon of the beer media, we are going to be doing a little bit about craft beer in the mainstream media. Hopefully we'll be talking about more than Brewdog when we get to that section. And then finally we'll conclude with what's coming up. So reminder, get your questions in, and please make sure they're not just for me and Wayne. We want you to be sending some in for Jager, Will, and Tom as well. Okay.
So first up, first beer. So I've poured ours already, and hopefully you guys have already poured yours, but for the start of the feed. So this was the collab we talked about on last YouTube session. It's the one we brewed with Colin from Salt. It's Hopbusters. Our cheesy puns don't keep. Well, the ideas keep going. It originally was called Bob Hopness, and we thought that no one would understand who Bob Holness was, who used to host Blockbusters. So we went for another reference, which you guys hopefully understand. But
yeah, well, thankfully we employ a number of people in our team that are considerably younger than us, and they went, what?
Yeah, they ground us with our random references sometimes. So yeah, we went with Hopbusters. So it was a New England IPA, so it's a style that Salt brew quite a lot of. We do them a little bit. We wanted to try and work with them and learn as much as possible from them. So we adopted their approach to this beer. So pale malt, malted oats, flaked oats. I am reading this off a script because I didn't brew it.
Dextrin will be the other one.
Yeah, flaked wheat and dextrin. And we went with a different ratio that they typically use in some of their pale beers. So we really like it. We really like the way it's played out. I say we, and talk about the brewers who we haven't launched this beer officially. It launches next week, doesn't it?
Well, we should have said that actually when talking about the itinerary. 3 of the beers that we're tasting today, you are exclusively tasting first because they're not released. I think 2 get released next week. 1 of them is released the week after. So that's one of the benefits of being the subscriber. You get to taste the beers first.
And we got the sneak preview because the brewers were drinking the underfilled cans and telling us how much they liked it, which is a really good thing. So the guys came with the idea. They brewed it with Salt, so they got to try it in advance of general release. But it does make us a little bit nervous because as soon as we personally, myself and Lee, when we really like a beer that we make, it goes out to the public and it doesn't sell for whatever reason. We just like certain styles that are quite unique, but our brewers are a little bit more down to earth, I think, than we are.
No, I think we've had a few beers in the last year or two where we've somewhat jinxed ourselves. Like, yeah, best pale in ages.
We love this.
And then it goes on Untapped, and then it gets a pervert, and then it doesn't sell very well.
But we won't descend into the Untapped world.
No, we've done that too many times before. We're not going there again.
It's a fun world in the brewing industry. So yeah, we brewed it to their malt bill. We then hopped it with Motueka, which is a New Zealand hop we really like, and Nelson Sauvin, which is one of my favourite hops. It gives this very wine-like character to a beer usually, and this one's no exception. So great hop characteristic in my opinion, if I do say so myself. And then you get the gooseberry flavour coming through from Nelson. So really pleased with how this has turned out. The name, I did mention the original Bob Hopness and then eventually becoming the Hopbusters. It's because of their logo. If you're not familiar with Salt Beer Factory, well, it used to be called Salt Beer Factory, but they just call themselves Salt now. If you do see their logo, it very much reminds us of the old Blockbusters game.
Well, their logo came from, so if you work in food production or the beer industry, you tend to have in your factory setup, if you can afford it, chem tiles. They're these hexagonal tiles that go on the floor. And Jamie, the owner of Salt, I think, has a bit of an obsession with them. So he's decided to brand one of his breweries, Salt, using the hexagonal pattern that comes from those tiles.
So we had to be a bit creative with the game board, and hopefully people don't quite remember the exact details of the Blockbusters game, but we rotated a little bit.
We know the bit that everybody does remember, though. I'll have a pee, please, Bob.
That's me, isn't it? Tonight I won't be the first to go for a pee, please, Bob. It'll be him. Because just before we came on camera, I managed to rush off. So Lee's going to be the one waiting, not me.
Yeah, you know, all that's done has made it extra special and embarrassing when you still go first.
When more people join us on camera, I'll make the excuse then. There's too many people. I'll have to go. So yeah, some little Easter eggs in the game board. If you can guess, it might be the word Brew York. Very original. But yeah, we had a few bits of fun with that. The other thing to probably mention is that this beer as well, we changed the yeast combination we use. So typically we'll use just one variety of yeast. This one we've gone with a blend. It's London Ale yeast, which is a great beer for New England IPAs, and we blended that with Conan yeast, which is a really good yeast for hazy beers. So 2/3, 1/3 in the London Ale to Conan ratio. So hopefully you guys like it. Let us know in the feedback on the chat if you do. If you don't like it, then keep it to yourself.
Well, hopefully we've not jinxed ourselves once again by saying this is one of the better pales that we've released in recent times. So now at this point we go on and we talk about our highlights of the last month. So personally for me, I went to a Burns night meal. It was a black tie
Whiskey
dinner.
by any chance?
Lots of whiskey, lots of wine, a hell of a lot of wine actually. Really enjoyed it. Me and my wife went to that, had a very, very fun time.
It's a secret handshake.
You call it that, I don't call it. I'm part of a local entrepreneur society.
He's not a Mason, but he might.
It's not Masonic, it is philanthropic. It is a charitable organisation that raises money to support people who are going into business and enterprise and looks after the local Merchant Adventurers Hall.
But when you arrive, you have to do a special.
Nothing like that. The green-eyed monster win. But work highlight, I would have to say, was the subscriber party that we did at the back end of January.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was amazing. First time we've ever done it. I think probably about 60, 70 of you came in person. We took over downstairs. We did a launch tasting of Empress, which was a good 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the official UK launch of the beer. And it was amazing just to have everybody in the room and be able to go through that with you all. And to have the people in the room elect what the barrels are going to be for this year's barrel aging. I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah, it was. I mean, personally, I had a similar thing. The work highlight was really good to get the all you guys down for a bit of a Christmas party and a celebration. We've also done a few other little events the last couple of weekends. The last weekend, myself and Lee went to Stockport, of all places, and then also Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah.
So it was a double whammy weekend. But yeah, we met a lot of interesting people. We talked a lot about the different beers we've been bringing out recently. And it's just good to see a complete range of our drinkers. So when we went to Stockport, there's a bar there. We've put the bar in a gaming bar called Glitch. So you walk in, and we're proper nerds us anyway. So we walked in, and there's just game consoles everywhere, and game themed. Well, just a game theme across the whole thing. So it was a lot of fun there, and I got to play FIFA for the first time in about 6 or 7 years, and I managed to lose. I was Newcastle, and Mark, our sales director, was Sunderland, and he managed to beat me 3-1, was it? Which leads as a
and I'm a Newcastle fan, so I wasn't particularly impressed with that. But there you go. But yeah, it's a really cool bar, and I love what we've done in terms of the bar installation there. So they've got a front of bar font, like a bridge font, so it goes up, across, and down. And we've powder coated it green, so it looks like a Mario tube or Mario pipe. So it looks really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. And then we went to a couple of really interesting venues. Coldmore Taverns have a couple of bars, so we did a couple of things with those. And one of them was the Huntsman. Is that right? Woodsman. And we went there on Saturday, and Lee was on driving duty on that day, so I got to do the token drinking for everybody.
I was glad to be on driving duty that day. I felt terrible after
It was a heavy second day, and but it was really cool to go into a really awesome looking old fashioned pub in. It wasn't in Stoke City Centre. It was quite close by.
Hanley as well. It was.
And then we went in, and it was absolutely rammed, and a lot of the people genuinely came out to have a chat with us, which was really surreal. So sometimes you go to a tap takeover event, and no one's actually there to talk to you or cares about the beer. They're just going out because they're already going to be out. But some of the people who've been down for our original launch, who tasted our beers when we first started the brewery, and had tried, like someone got a notebook out of all the different beers he tried of ours and stuff. So it's just a bit surreal and quite nice.
It's amazing when we meet people that are like really, really, really into the brewery and
know more about us than we do.
Yeah, I was just going to say, quite often they know more about us than we do, as you've said. I remember when we did an event with Elusive. We went to their tap room, and some super fans, I guess you would call them, turned up. And I was asked a question, and I gave an answer, and then someone in the audience went, "No, that's not right." And they were right. They corrected me. It turns out they do know more than we do.
And for me, personal highlight, it's been a really busy month, so I haven't actually got to do much outside of work. But last weekend, when we got back from our little trip away, besides sleeping when I arrived back at Saturday at 6 p.m. and I seemed to fall asleep till Sunday, but myself and Sam, my partner, went out for a really nice walk on Sunday. It's just nice to get out and just do something really relaxing, so that was pretty cool. So that was my highlight of the month.
All right, and if I could move this page on, we'd move on to the next section.
But next beer, so that's you. So, no questions, surely. Got 15 minutes, we can't be on to the next beer,
Yeah, so we got any questions in yet? Thank you very much. Just the one so far. Wayne and Lee equals D. What does that mean?
It's an arrow.
Oh, that's an arrow. Right.
I knew this was coming.
Before craft beer happened, what did you drink? I think I would. I was drinking
Brewdog.
No,
Does that count as non-craft?
No, I was drinking locally. We've got a brewery called Roosters, and they've been doing American hopped cask beer for 20. Well, I think it's 30 years this year actually. So I was drinking that. So I guess technically that was craft beer. It just wasn't called craft beer back then.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to American hops in beer. And if not that, then probably Thornbridge. And going even further back than that, just real ale, whatever the guest cask was that wasn't John Smith's. That's kind of where I started out.
I wasn't even a cask ale drinker. When I moved to York, I always think 10 years ago was a hell of a lot longer than that now. It was probably 15, 16 years ago. And at the time I moved to York, I used to drink lager or Weiss beer or whatever it was, whatever I could find that was quite lagery but not quite lager. And then I moved on to, I was just talking about this the other day, the Schneider Weiss, the tap, they used to have the taps on the top of the bottles, it was tap number whatever. And I really got into that, and then started slowly realising that why would I drink, or in a city like York where there's hundreds and hundreds of choice of beers, why would I spend all my time drinking one specific style when there's so much variety out there? And then became a bit obsessive, and in particular at the time it was genuinely Brewdog Punk, but it was also Sierra Nevada, pale ale. Torpedo was the dangerous beer, but Sierra Nevada in particular, if I could find that, I'd drink it. And then I realised that punk was quite nice at the time, and then I used to try and drink that.
I like the way you qualified that with at the time.
It was, and then, but now it doesn't taste anything like it used to, or maybe my palate's changed that much, but I still love Sierra Nevada, and I don't really like punk anymore, so maybe it's not just my palate.
Okay. Next question we have is, what has been your most successful beer that started as a wild, crazy idea? Joe, in brackets, not London.
It's got to be Tonkoko. So that was the. If we go back to, we still host a homebrew club here once a month, and prior to that it was held at York Brewery, so just a former brewery near the train station. And when we used to attend there, we met a guy called Alex, who was a Kiwi guy who used to do some really, really cool beers, but they were so never going to be commercial beers. Maybe they could now. Maybe he could come work for us for some ideas, but he used to come up with some really, really good concepts, but they were always brewed above 10%. And they were always really good home brews and some really wacky ingredients. And one of the things he'd used at the time was the coconut.
But extreme levels of coconut. Yeah, where, like I think you're hinting at there, it would not be economically viable to do on our kind of scale, but works at homebrew level.
And then, we went to Leeds International Beer Festival, probably 2014 or 15, I can't remember which one, and Hawkshead had just brought out their Tonka beer at the time, and we were pretty obsessive about that beer in particular.
You know, we're doing 2 bits on Tonkoko later.
So don't
all we're doing now is reducing our content for later on.
The beer that was probably the one that you were talking about, Tonkoko, is the one that's the out there idea that became something that's.
And I'm really proud of other things that we've had in our core range. They're not all part of it now. We've had a rhubarb and custard pale. We've had a gooseberry flavoured sour. I think that's kind of out there to have in your core range and have available all year round. So.
The other thing that we did when we started, which we try to do a little bit less of now, but they all seem to be strong at the moment, is pretty much every beer we had was 5%. And that was because that kind of felt like a benchmark for us to drink. I don't mind 5%, that works quite well. Let's design our own home brews around 5% ABV. So when we became a commercial brewery, that's kind of what we did. And then opening a tap room and getting direct customer feedback. Well, yeah, we genuinely do need some more lower strength beers in our range. So we adapted and kind of, changed our approach. It wasn't just what we could drink or what we wanted. We still wanted to brew those type of beers, but we needed to make some allowances for what the general public would like to drink, not just what we can manage.
Cool. Any final questions, or are we bringing in the next beer? Done that one. What happened to the question I gave you?
I thought we'd already read that one. That's why I put it down here.
What is all the noise about the Scottish DRS law? Is it a real threat to small breweries? Wow, we're going deep early here.
If you sell canned beer into Scotland, the DRS law is probably going to cripple your business. We do sell canned beer into Scotland, but it's not a huge proportion of our
it stands for Deposit Return Scheme. It is designed to encourage the manufacturer of a product to have more responsibility for the recycling of the product. So you end up having to pay a deposit on each can, and it's expected to be 20p per can. But you as the consumer are going to have to fund that initially, so you're going to end up paying more for your beer. And then we only get credited back that 20p at the point at which that beer gets recycled. But say we sold you a barrel-aged beer and you decide to put it in your cellar for 5 years, then it doesn't get recycled. So you're just having this big overhead that's been created. And it's really, really, really badly thought through. So there are countries around the world that have been doing this thing for years, and they've got schemes that work really, really well. And the Scottish have decided, we're not going to take any of these exemplars that work perfectly. We're going to come up with our own thing and try and crowbar it in. And it is not going to work, and they are going to send people out of business.
And then England and Wales are both doing their own thing, and all three of the systems are going to be completely, well, not completely different, but all different interpretations of a similar thing over the next however many years. And it's not just the if you're a brewery, then you need to manage, your customer needs to return them to you unless you register for a separate scheme where you'll pay somebody else to manage it on your behalf. But the costs of administering it are going to be prohibitive, and we can't sell an existing can without the special logo. We can't sell the same beer into Scotland without putting the special logo on, which is fine for special release beers like we do a lot of, but our core beers are all on fully printed cans. We can't modify that can until we need to order the next batch. So pretty much our core beers excluded from Scotland from the outset, and then
it's going to disproportionately disadvantage smaller businesses. So if you think you're this big macro entity and you sell millions and millions of cans, and there's a cost to set up this scheme, you've millions and millions of cans to absorb that cost over. If you sell a small amount of beer, the cost to you is still the same, but you've got a smaller amount of product to absorb those costs over. So for someone like us, who selling beer into Scotland's only a minimal part of what we do, easiest thing for us to do is stop selling beer in Scotland. So that's what's going to happen. You're going to end up with a restricted consumer choice in Scotland because people just won't sell there because of this.
One of the interesting things the last couple of weeks since it's been announced is the amount of new customers are starting to buy our cans.
In Scotland?
Yeah.
Get them while they can.
I think they must be getting them in while they can.
So yeah, Jo, who works in our sales team, is just saying that she thinks a few people are doing a get them while you can thing, because apparently our recent sales into Scotland have escalated.
So let's have we got a more chirpy, positive question?
Yeah.
Start on the fun politics and.
Yeah, that was deep.
What happens if you take the labels off?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then they're not returnable.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. You've got you peel the labels.
Yeah, it's another thing they've not really considered. So yeah, Alan's just said if you peel the label off and then that goes to recycling, how do we get our deposit back? Because nobody will know it's a Brew York can you've recycled. So yeah, another example of how it's really, really badly thought through.
We could sneak you some cans in the post. You peel the promise you peel the labels off, put me a sticker book, and then write a T for tenants on the silver can.
All these cans that we've left, like tail ends of things we've done previously, we'll drive them all up to Scotland and recycle them. Nice. Anyway, Jesus, I am lagging. Well, and I've got to talk about this one.
Well, to be fair, we're actually 7 minutes ahead of schedule, so you can neck it if you want.
Done it.
And we'll move on to the...
Right, and you're supposed to pour while I talk.
I'm supposed to pour, but Pete, can you do this? The audio for this? Can you do a song that reminds you of Watermelonz and?
If only an artist had done like a Watermelonz sugar related kind of song recently.
Sing it.
Oh, I am so not down with the kids because I have no idea what you're talking about.
He won a Grammy. He's a Grammy Award winner.
Over
Beyonce.
Was it released pre-2005?
Was he once in One
If the
Direction?
answer is no, I will not know about
But you
it.
love One Direction, so I thought
yeah. Okay,
no, it was in the news because
apparently
Harry
someone
Styles
recently
won a Grammy for best album ahead of Beyonce, and lots of other.
I don't think there's anything I can say on that won't get me in trouble.
What about Watermelon Sugar High? You not know that song?
Right, and you'll need that one then. Right. Great pouring.
Thank you.
Right, so the next beer is the latest in our sweet shop series. So we've done a series of beers based around retro sweets. So we've had fizzy cherry cola bottles, we've had lemon sherbets. Last month was the Henry Hogs, definitely not Percy Pig one. And this month it is the fizzy Watermelonz. And this is the last one for a while, guys, because we're getting into birthday party season. So the next couple of sours are going to be focused around what we're doing for our birthday beers. So this is the last in this series for now.
So wait for some spoilers later from somebody.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes.
Maybe off-camera spoilers, maybe.
So it's a fairly simple grist that's gone into this. It's Pilsner, so a lager malt, some flaked oats, and a little bit of wheat malt. And then we've used a hop called Eldorado. Eldorado kind of either does tropically, pineapple-y kind of thing, but it's also known to give a little bit of a watermelon characteristic at times, so we've used that. We've then fermented it warm with a Norwegian strain of yeast called Voss. You ferment it at like a body-like temperature, about 37 degrees C. And it gives off really nice fruity esters, which is great when you're doing these kind of fruit-forward beers. Really helps to enhance the fruit characters. So we've done that, and we've included some raspberry puree in here, but the raspberry puree was merely about trying to get the colour in there. It really shouldn't taste like raspberry. Well, I've not actually drunk this yet, so I drank it when it was on packaging day, but I've not drunk it since it's been packaged.
The nose isn't...
Alongside the sweet.
Yeah. The nose isn't like in your face watermelon.
I feel like that does taste like more raspberry now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely getting
It
raspberry.
tasted a lot more like watermelon on packaging there.
Watermelon's so subtle, so I think we might have raspberried our watermelon, which isn't a bad thing because
well, I
I
can't.
kind of like raspberry, but yeah.
I wonder if the flavour's not dissipated around it correctly.
So that's raspberry melons.
That's nice. Right, so I've rushed through that beer because I think it's more important that we get our guests on camera now.
Yeah.
So we're going to welcome first, Jager's going to join us from Wildcard, and Tom's going to join us from Patisserie Valerie. And we're going to talk a little bit first about what we brewed today. And then Tom's going to depart, Will's going to come on camera, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Wildcard Brewery.
I feel really tall now because I've moved on to the big seat.
So just when you put this in,
So I like being down there.
Okay, here. Gotcha.
So hopefully we've got the mic split right because Lee's got quite a loud voice. Who have you volunteered for the loud voice then? See who's on mic share.
Sometimes they make me put my mic down there.
So now you can see all our cheat sheets and all the other stuff we've been working on.
So ignore what that says because that's about Wildcard. First of all, I want to talk about what we've done today. So why are you here, Tom? I think that's what people are going to want to know first.
Why am I here? Doesn't everyone love cake?
We do.
Yeah.
But you can see we do.
So, I mean, you were talking about rhubarb and gooseberry and your history with interesting flavours. So, Patisserie Valerie, it's like you guys know Martin, don't you? The
Yes.
Chief Marketing Officer from Pat Val.
Yeah.
So the idea of a collab has been kicking around for a little while, I think.
Yeah, we were talking to Martin in his previous life, easy for me to say. Previous life was working for Betty's and Taylor's, and we wanted to do a Fat Rascal based beer, and we couldn't get the green light. But when he moved on to Pat Val, he reached out and said, "We'd love to do something." So we were like, "Brilliant! What can we do together?" So it was a great.
Yeah.
It was a shame we couldn't do the Fat Rascal, but it was great to then have an opportunity to do something new.
Yes. So the choice of cake this time was millefeuille or vanilla slice, depending on what you want to call it. It's and it's like a bestseller, and it's also like an interesting challenge because it's a lot of its appeal is textural. Like it's sort of layers of pastry and then flaky pastry and icing on top and this custard in the middle. And its dominant flavour is probably vanilla, which is an interesting one to see if you can capture it. Do you how have you found conceiving of how easy was it to think of the right sort of beer to go with it?
Oh, wow. Yes. So pastry stouts, I would say, is a bit of a speciality of ours. And we've been chatting to Jake and Will for, geez, it must be years. Must be years now. A number of years about getting together to do a beer. And we said we were going to do a pastry stout. And we said we were going to, at long last, do it around this time of the year. And then this opportunity came up. So then we approached them and said, how about we do it as a 3-way collab? Because I think you wanted to do a pastry stout with us anyway.
Yeah, because Brew, you guys do awesome pastry stouts, like really, really incredible. Some of the UK's finest. So for me as a brewer, like it's phenomenal to come up here and brew with you guys. And a brand like you guys, it's a sure thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly the way we felt. We love the opportunity to obviously work with you guys. We've been trying to do it since we officially, formally first met, which was in Denmark in just before COVID kicked off in March 20.
Before the world went
just
dark.
while we were there, the
I'm
festival
glad somebody
we were pouring
remembered,
at-
because Tom asked me earlier, he said, when did you first
Yeah,
meet
it
Joe?
was
I
literally.
like, I've seen them at lots of festivals. Which was the first one?
It was when the hand sanitizer came out at the festival and all of the audience numbers just dropped to nothing. So we spent all the time just walking around talking to each other and drinking.
Yeah, it was
just so surreal.
People like us, Beer Festival.
And you guys were like busy falling off
Copenhagen.
scooters all the time. Those
And-
electric
Oh, yeah,
scooters.
in
Yeah,
Denmark.
the day before in Copenhagen, of Denmark, they'd announced that because of the spread of COVID, they were restricting public gatherings to 1,000 people. So this beer festival then consequently tanked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was screwed the day before it was due to go live. So we had fun drinking.
It was great. It was
Because
an amazing time.
there wasn't too many customers to pour for.
It was
But
great.
we'd spent like so much time, obviously, as businesses trying to recover from COVID, do everything else. And once we got a chance to go out again, we then started bumping into each other at festivals again, and we kept talking about doing this, and we just never got the date locked in the diary and formalised it. And then, we finally got the date locked in, I think, back end of last year.
Yeah.
So it was nice to finally do this. And time of year as well, stouts work really well.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
To
we-
be fair, the last few years we've all been a bit tied up.
but yeah, it's been a bit crazy.
So if we go back round to your question, because I know I didn't answer that.
All right.
I just wanted to give a little bit of context to how this all came about first. So how have we managed to get the flavours in? So we spoke to your team at Pat Val, as you referred to.
What we're brewing,
Uh,
what we brewed,
Well,
before we tell what
yeah,
flavour.
all right. So we spoke to Martin and we said, first of all, what are your best-selling cakes?
Sure.
And the one that came out is, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I know, because I got it wrong.
You can call it a vanilla,
Vanilla
slice if you
slice.
want that.
Vanilla.
Milfoy, I did it wrong again. Right, so it's called a milfoy, which I believe refers
Harry
to the
Potter?
thousands of layers of pastry in it. That's
Yeah,
what it means,
yeah, yeah.
thousands of layers.
Theoretically
So,
thousands.
yeah, 1,000 sheets is what it means. There we go. The rest of us in Yorkshire at least call it a vanilla slice. Hence, the beer that we've made today we are calling Slice Slice Baby. Oh, come on.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
So yeah, I've still not answered your question. So how have we approached getting the flavours of that into there? So we asked your team, can you tell us as much as you can about the recipe? And they could only tell us so much. So we know the kind of basic ingredients. We're not allowed to know the ratios and things. So we've replicated those ingredients as best as we can in beer form. And in making the stout, what we've tried to do is to make sure that we've not got too big a roast character in there. Because we need the other flavours like the vanilla and so forth to really, really stand out and replicate what you've done with that magnificent cake.
So what I want to know is how many vanilla slices did we squeeze into the beer?
Well,
On camera.
they provided 40, and I think we only allowed 8 to go into the beer because we wanted to eat them.
That's always a risk.
Yeah, we've all been eating vanilla slices all afternoon, as well as lots of other food. So
It's a hard life.
yeah, exactly.
hard
Someone's got to
life.
do it. Drink beer and eat vanilla slices.
Okay. So we're hoping this is a partnership that has legs. I think Martin has some plans for down the line. I doubt he's shared them with you yet.
Yeah,
So I'm
well,
not going to ask you what they are. I'm not
thank
going to
you.
put you on the spot with that. We hope it involves more beer and other great opportunities down the
More
line.
cakes.
Yeah,
Definitely more cakes. If you want to send more cakes out there,
Although
always welcome.
that was the other
Noted.
thing. We didn't just get the vanilla slice, mil whatever. Sorry, what is it, Anne? Milfoy. Like I said, Harry Potter.
Thank you. You made me feel a little bit better now.
So we also got a few of the other cakes. And did you eat one back in the hotel
I
room?
had the strawberry
It
one. It
looked
was
good,
lovely.
didn't
It
it?
was very
It was
good.
so
I
nice.
carried it all the way to the hotel.
not spilling it in the
Didn't
in the
spill a
car.
drop. That
Well,
was great.
I mean, one thing I didn't say is, so the team shipped them to us yesterday, and we put them in our cold store, which is fridge temperature. And I'd forgotten they'd shipped them to us frozen.
Yeah,
So we then got
technically
them out to
transport.
serve to people today, and they're all still frozen.
It was like vanilla ice cream. It was really nice.
Yeah, out of Viennetta vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
It was nice, but it added an extra challenge to a thing that's already incredibly challenging to consume.
So this is
That's part of the allure, isn't it? It's how hard it
How
is
do
to
I eat this?
Yeah, you can't bite through it without it squidging everywhere. You need at least 3 napkins.
Can I ask, what is the official method of eating a vanilla slice?
Well, it's as varied as cream eggs. Like,
That's a good answer.
you'll think you'll have heard them all, and then someone will have a specific method. So
What's the weirdest?
The most scientific is to take it apart layer by layer, but it also takes a lot of the joy out. Your method, Lee,
that was
is
the
also
Will
my
method,
method.
I think. You took each layer across, didn't you?
Yeah, which was, would you recommend it?
Yeah, for a clean finish.
Yeah.
So you're taking it apart horizontally, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what-
Surgical.
Layer at a time, horizontal layer at a time.
Yeah.
I think like you were going to say that, you really need the combination of all the flavours together, and the only way to do that is there.
Exactly.
I've got the OCD method of I flip it on its side, I get a knife out and I chop it into bite-sized chunks, pastry-wise, so that it doesn't squash up.
Who would
But
have
yeah.
thought the accountant might take an approach like that?
I get my tape measure and I get precise slices to make sure I get exact the same quantities in every bite.
You do need a very sharp
go.
knife for that.
Oh, exactly.
yeah.
Especially when it's frozen.
Yeah. So that's 3 methods, but they're theoretically infinite. And you've added a new one, which is you're going to be able to drink it shortly.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yes. I suppose you could have put the original in a blender.
Also true. Yeah.
So if anyone's watching at home, the Weep steak, Ben lost in the audience. Ben lost it all. But you guys won't know who Ben is. So.
So I know that's short but sweet, but thank you for joining us. It's been a brilliant opportunity to get to work with you and the team.
Thank you very much.
And I know you're driving, so that's about as much as you can drink.
That's
So
about it, yeah,
you'll have to come back another time and have some proper beers with us.
Thank you for making me feel really welcome. And it's been a joy to see the brewing process today. It's been lovely. Lovely to meet you too.
I know, thank you for giving me so much cake.
Oh, that's fine. Anytime.
Thank you.
Oh, now I feel like
Right, so your microphone will need handing on to Will. So Will's now going to join us on camera. So while he does that, do you want to begin telling us a little bit
at
about
this point, I'm
Wildcard?
glad that you and Will have got the shorter seats because Will's actually taller than me and Lee. So it's unusual we get guests in who are
It's
actually
not
taller.
often we get dwarfed, actually, is
So at
it?
least I'll feel tall on the big seat in the
I seem
centre.
to recall this is why you originally bonded.
It's nice hanging around with people who make me feel normal size.
Yeah, exactly. Rugby and feeling normal.
Right, so should we
Hello,
start at
everyone.
the beginning? So you are 2 of the 3 founders of Wildcard? So
Yeah,
how
that's
did it
right.
all begin?
So Wildcard started in 2012. We were hobbyist brewers, and then a credit card and a shed, and it's just kind of got wildly out of hand since then. That's more or less the shape of it. I'd say.
While the
I
Olympics were
need to
going
learn
on,
to
you
tell
guys
my
were
story
like-
that succinctly.
Yeah.
You guys were smashing out a brewery while the Olympics were going on.
Yeah, that's
down in
right.
London.
That's
Oh,
right.
of course.
Because you actually aren't too far, are you, from where?
No, we're not. So we're Walthamstow, East London. So if anyone is ever down in the East London
Yeah,
neck of the
come see
woods,
us.
come see us. But yeah, so we're coming up to our 11th year now. It feels
Long
like
time.
a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I was a barrel washer at a brewery in Nottingham called Castle Rock, and Jake
Oh,
did
we
chemical
all know
engineering at university, and that felt like a kind of good combo to get started. Andrew, who couldn't be here today, sadly, is our accountant, so he's the guy missing out.
He's
I
not
don't
awesome.
believe he exists. I've never actually seen this, Andrew.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
He's
He's
just
a
there,
myth.
he's hovering, watching the
He's a
money.
myth.
That's what he's
He's a myth.
doing.
He's
He's
a myth.
watching the live stream
He's
now,
there,
making
yeah.
sure that he's.
He's making sure we don't get up to nonsense.
That's exactly what we do.
Does he have any chance of succeeding in that?
No, very little.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're in Walthamstow, which is East London. So like the guy said, it's near the Olympic Park.
That's where East 17 came from.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
where
believe I've
East
said that.
17 comes from.
See, he loves his
You
parties.
know our local council got them back when they performed live,
Like
like
Christmas
last
lights
year.
or
Honestly,
something.
Yeah, they wheel
did.
him out for the Christmas
Yeah,
lights.
and there's
in the white jackets.
Yeah.
in the white jackets,
Yeah,
and there was
from
only,
that
there's
video,
literally
yeah.
3 of them left,
Oh.
and the other two, I don't know what the hell they do. There's just one of them who's doing all the work, to be honest. But anyway, it's fantastic. to
Ryan
watch.
Harvey is the only one I would remember.
Yeah, that's the one who run himself over, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not him. It's the other one.
It's the other
Yeah.
one.
Anyway.
We've got a tap room.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, yeah. So we operate a tap room at the brewery. So if you're ever in East London, you can come visit us. We're on the Victoria line, so easy to get to.
What's the name of you've got a mile now, haven't you?
Yeah, we have it's called the Black Horse Beer Mile. So we kind of originally we were a bit out in the sticks in Walthamstow when it started. That's kind of like the beginning of the suburbs, you know. It's like the edge of the inner city. And slowly but surely, the other breweries have been driven out of the centre by kind of like rent hikes and the way the railway arches were rented changed. That drove a load of lads out at once. And yeah, now they've all come to join us. How many is there now?
So now on the same road, within about 5 minutes walk, I think there's 7 or 8 breweries, all within one really concentrated area. And it's because in Walthamstow, it's one of the few places in London where there's industrial space. So we're all quite close together. So we've got 3 venues. We've got our pub, which is called the Tavern on the Hill, which went viral recently. I'm not joking, it went viral.
I was
going
to
to
ask you that. It's something to do with Stormzy?
Stormzy came. No, it was. No, it went viral unrelated to Stormzy. He came because it went viral. So it went viral before him. So we've had all sorts of
something to
celebrities.
do with your like.
It's the
Jamaican
roast.
breakfast, is it?
No,
Yeah,
close.
Jamaican Sunday lunch.
Yeah, that's
we
there
do
we go.
a Caribbean Sunday
Let's
lunch.
not talk about that right now.
Yeah. But and then we have the barrel store. We do all our barrel aging stuff, and then we have the tap room, which is where the brewery is. So it's quite similar to this setup. Yeah.
But, so do you guys know about TikTok then? So can you teach Lee some dances tonight? Because I keep asking them to do something.
Yeah, so you'd think, kind of like ironic knowing dancing, you'd think that's like a lot of it, but that's not all of it. You know what I mean? There's all different angles, but you would do
I'm
a
44 years old. I don't think TikTok's targeted at me.
good. You'd be surprised.
I think TikTok's targeted at everyone.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
It's bigger than Google.
So our most watched TikTok is Uncle Tony, so Lee's uncle, who we all call Uncle Tony, pouring concrete for our silos.
Yeah.
That's what TikTok
Yeah,
is.
there's
Something for everybody. Concrete pouring.
What does that say about the rest of your content, Pete?
Yeah, mate.
I really like the one you did this week with the you put the camera inside the can that went through the canning line, which I found was quite good. Yeah, but that's only got 500 views.
I've not seen this because I don't do TikTok. Maybe I should for that.
Yeah, it's weird what goes. There's a car ford in Nottingham. Literally, just you drive through
what?
a car ford, like as in a small river that goes across
Oh, I thought you
a
meant
river
like
that's
a
about that
Ford
deep.
car. I thought you were just saying
No, I'm not saying it weird.
those really small Fords from like the 2000.
No, it's a river that goes over a road. It's about that deep. So you drive your car through it slowly in Rufford. That's viral on TikTok for reasons. The police have had to
People
close
waiting
it.
for people
So
to,
many
like,
people
float
have
down the
driven
river.
there to video themselves going through it. The police have closed it. It's a bizarre thing.
Yeah, weird stuff. Well, York's pretty
Rufford
pretty
Ford.
viral.
Weird.
So if you, hopefully we'll get a chance to show you the shambles if you haven't already been there. Yeah. And there's Harry Potter shops galore, and that's why it's always going viral on things like TikTok, because there's weird like things you can buy on there, like wands and all sorts.
And there's this shop that does the little ceramic ghosts that are about that big, that people queue for hours and hours and hours for, and then they sell them on eBay for thousands.
Butterbeer.
Butterbeer, yeah, you can get butterbeer on there. and all sorts.
Butterbeer.
Harry Potter stuff.
What were those sweets you had that what you could, if you got it wrong, you get a vomit one?
Oh yeah,
Every
jelly
flavoured
bait,
beans.
Yeah.
So,
How did we get there?
Don't know.
We went on a.
So, what's your kind of brewing ethos? What kind of beers do you make?
What kind of beers do we make? So we do all sorts, really. So we've just had our NEIPA series, which is a really popular series. It comes out in December every year, and that's kind of meant to be really ostentatious, kind of silly, very expensive to make. Andrew loves us for it. And
that's our relationship.
Yeah. And it's collabs with kind of the newest and kind of like breweries who I think are doing really cool things in the New England space. So I think this year we did Attic, we did Dig, we did Baron, and we did Azvex.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, as a
Formerly
collab. Yeah.
of
Of
Neon
Neon
Raptor.
That's the
Raptor,
guy, yeah, that's the
so,
guy.
so it's a really
Oh,
like,
Nottingham.
cool.
Yep.
Nottingham.
Yeah, you know, it's all, we're always taking it back to our hometown.
So lots of like big hoppy bold beers. We also make a cracking best on cask, if you like a bit of that.
Well,
Yeah.
100%.
Really do.
Yeah.
Lee did one, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, sorry, yes, unfortunately. Lee's dad, Lee made a tribute, which wasn't unfortunate, but Lee's dad unfortunately passed away a while back, and that was this beer. It's
I
called
enjoyed
100%
watching you
Pay Rise.
trip over yourself.
I'm going to keep digging there. So Lee's dad used to volunteer for us when we first started, and we had this ongoing joke where we couldn't pay him. We wanted to pay him, and we couldn't pay him because he didn't
He just
want
wanted to be here, and he loved the experience of being part of the team, and he'd knock off at 3 on a Friday, which is an hour before everyone else, and he'd have the bar to himself, and he'd go and have the best bitter, and he would just drink that on his own. But yeah, he always had this running joke with us both, which was, you need to give me a pay rise. And I was like, well, we'll give you 100% pay rise. The 100% on nothing's nothing. So we named an ESB called 100% pay rise not so long ago in tribute to my dad.
That's lovely.
So yeah, we do like the traditional styles. I think we would like to do more of them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so Jagan mentioned that we picked up a pub. So when the lockdown came in, as soon as the lockdown came in, one of our local pubs just shut up shop, and it was kind of too much for them, and they stopped. And we managed to get hold of the lease. And it's an interesting place. Classic East London boozer. It came with no less than 5 England flags on the walls when we arrived.
You knew what you were walking into.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful old, hundreds-year-old building, proper old school pub.
It was once voted Britain's roughest pub.
Yeah. There was a crap Sky TV programme about really rough pubs in the UK that came
Sounds
out in
like
the
something like
noughties.
Ross Kemp might have hosted.
No, you'd hope so. Or but no, it's Pete Brown is on it actually.
A
If
very
you know
young,
Pete Brown,
very young
looking
Pete
young
Brown.
and thin. Yeah. So we decided that if we were going to have an old school pub, we probably needed to get back on making the best.
But that had owning venues has somewhat shaped the beer that we make. I think you were saying this earlier. We launched with nothing over 5, and then people were like, love your beers, but go easy on us, please. So we then started doing the sub 5. We brought in a best bitter ourselves. You then find you have to make a lager, and then, well, if I'm going to make a lager, I then want to make the best lager I can. So then it kind of snowballs like that a bit, doesn't it?
There are a few styles that just because you have venues now, you kind of have to make. And like one of them is like, I don't know if you guys do it, but I have to make a 4.5% wheat beer. Because otherwise, I have to buy a 4.5% wheat beer from somebody else.
We're not
so I
there
just have to have
yet,
it.
but Wayne's asked for us to make
Oh, you
one.
know?
Because going back to what I used to drink before I loved craft beer, I was like, well, when we went to a few different cities in Europe this year pouring at festivals, and it's kind of my go-to. I ended up drinking wheat beer quite a lot. So it'd be
Nice little
great.
Snyder Weiss.
Yeah, it'd be great to have one back where we are. But I was like, well, every time we've done one, it hasn't sold. So well, actually, let's back ourselves this time. We're not that old, but we're 7 years old now. I'm sure we've got enough people who like our beer, who like that style of beer. And if we don't have enough people, we've got enough venues who buy off us to want a good.
So how good's your wheat beer? Because my fear is that you've got these
The wheat's
hundreds of year old heritage German breweries doing it really well, and actually not at that bad a price.
Yeah.
How can we technically compete with that?
Yeah, the wheat's good, and it gets better. That's one thing I've found. It's
Yeah.
nice when it's first made, but it gets a lot better.
Okay.
But the thing is-
Off
but the
camera,
thing is
we need to
that-
grill you on this.
No,
You should.
The thing
Wheat beer is
but
great.
You know what it is with this heritage? I mean, we're so lucky in the UK where we brew. Like we're next door to Belgium. We've got obviously the heritage of Germany, but also as British brewers, we have our own heritage, and we're pretty good here ourselves. So sometimes we just need to like stand up and just
But
do it.
if you think of
know what I mean?
anything sessionable, we're the envy of the world.
Yeah,
People
that's
can't pack the flavour into the smaller beers in the way that we can in the UK.
Yeah.
Hey, can you remember that American fella came to see us filling casks? You remember that? We had an American brewer came to the UK with the express reason of finding out how British brewers fill casks.
Yeah,
Fill them?
learn to
Yeah, he
Not
didn't
about how
bel-
you make the beer, how you fill
No, it was
them.
about racking.
Right.
And he, I think he was a bit. I think he felt like we were hiding something from him, you know,
Yeah.
because coming from just a background of kegs, when we were like, right, we
mean,
do
I-
this,
I-
you fill it up, you hammer the bung
I
in.
might
He
not be
was
down
just-
with the TikTok generation, but I reckon you could probably see that on YouTube.
Yeah. This was a while ago.
But you know what it is?
do it.
But you know when you travel, and it's one of the things that you realise as a British brewer, it's one of the things that we take really for granted, because for us, cask beer is kind of one of the first things you learn. It's kind of your bread and butter. Because for us, it's a lot easier process-wise. They're learning pressure, they're learning all the other parts of it. To other breweries around the world, like they don't get to see that.
And cellarmanship is the other thing they don't have. So, we have landlords who appreciate that cask beer is a living product. You basically tap it, vent it, serve it, and if it's not sold within 4 or 5 days, the beer's spoiled. Whereas in America, they're probably trying to keep it for 2 weeks. And they're like, what do you guys do to fill it to make sure it doesn't go off? Well, we don't. We do it probably the way you are. We just serve it and sell it quicker. And if it doesn't sell, we have to destroy it.
I would say cask is simple, but not simple. So you're right, in terms of minimum investment in equipment and all that kind of stuff, producing cask in that sense, relatively straightforward. Yeah. But to master the art of cask production, hard, I would say is considerably harder than producing keg beer. A major difference being with keg beer, you fully ferment it out, you inject it with gas. You've got constant control over the level of carbonation in that beer. Cask beer, you just got to hope that yeast's going to do the same thing every time, and it doesn't because it's organic. So it's really hard to nail cask beer. But that's why the British are.
It's a complicated simplicity, that's what it is.
Ooh, I like that.
On that point, it's probably my turn to go to the toilet.
Told you. We all knew you were setting yourself up for a fall.
Ben went before I did, so I don't feel bad.
And thank you for not taking the mic this time.
Did that happen?
Yeah, unfortunately, there has been a naked gun moment before, yes. Right, so 11 years you've been going. What's your proudest moments in that time?
You know what? The award recently is a biggie.
Which one?
The Stout.
Yes, we won. From our barrel age range, so I released a book this year called Wild Brews. Please go out and buy it if you can. It would be great.
Is that your first published book?
First published book, got to #1 in across all beer and all drink sales, so that's pretty good, But anyway, so I've slowly been releasing beers, kind of gently according to when things are ready. And one of the beers we released from that series was our Imperial Stout, which actually isn't barrel aged. So I've got lots of them that are barrel aged to come, but this was the kosher version that we've released just as is, nothing fancy. Just barley, water, yeast, and hops, and it won International Beer Challenge's best, one of the best beers in category, and then it won the best of the best or something. So it's technically now, because it's the International Beer Challenge.
Just this year.
I'm taking it as currently the best stout in the world because technically, So I have actually bought for you guys.
Is that what we're going to drink later?
No,
you tease.
So this one is unreleased yet. So this is kind of my version of a framboise. So it's our raspberry beer. We're going to call it raspberry cuvee. It's going to be coming out soon. But this is made of essentially lambic that's been in barrel for 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, all blended together, sat on an almost unprofitable amount of raspberry, and then bottled. So you get to
But the Imperial Stout is a fun beer. So the reason our Imperial Stout is kosher is the first shed that we ever got hold of, which is tiny. It's kind of fractionally bigger than this room here. The fella we rent it off sadly died, and his son's taken over. Is an Orthodox Jewish fella. And 1 year when we were renting
you
from
literally did mean kosher.
Yeah,
No,
1
I
year.
mean kosher.
I thought you meant as in unadulterated.
No,
it's
but
been
you actually
made,
mean fully
it's been made
unkosher.
under fully rabbinical supervision.
So one year he emailed us and said there's a festival coming up, a festival called Purim, and for Purim I'd like it if you'd brew me a beer, and I'll drink some. I'll give some to the rabbi as a present. And so we brewed him 30 litres of beer, and on brew day was arranged, and 2 rabbis, one local guy, one who works for a kind of food certification, rabbinical food certification program, came down, Rabbi Scarf and Rabbi Freeman, I think. And we brewed our little 30-litre batch with them, and again for a few years, and then 2 years ago we decided to go big and do 2,000 litres of it and release it to the general public. But we've been doing that with them for a number of years, and it's good fun.
I can't imagine there's too many people out there able to say similar.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. What was the beer that they said they really liked? It was something really left field, like Banks Imperial Stout or something like that.
They're really into that. The guys that we met, that they really wanted strong. The thing that's most similar would be the Russian Imperial Imperial Stouts, Russian Imperial Stouts kind of area, and also like Baltic
Porters.
porters. It's that kind of range. It's like strong and incredibly dark, and very like roast forward.
I can respect that.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun. They have when the beer's brewed, to make sure that nothing goes anywhere near the beer until they visit again the next time. They've their own police tape with the rabbinical seal on, which is absolutely fab. The whole thing's really fun. The whole thing's really great.
So it means you can't open the tank and add something to it because it's taped up.
Until they come back. So it's definitely kosher. But it's a really fun experience and really good fun.
I really like that.
Yeah, really good fun. Really good fun.
So the raspberry cuvee, have I
Yeah,
got that right that
raspberry
you mentioned
cuvee,
that?
yeah, you've got that.
So just to say, we're going to be tasting that at the end.
You guys can taste interactively by watching us.
Yeah, sorry guys,
It's
if
a
we
big
didn't know.
bottle. It's a big. I'm sure we can
For
share it.
those of you online, we'll be doing the whole session normally. You can check out if you want. You can observe as well. We drink that particular beer. It's a 750, so I'm hoping we can at least share some of it with the others in the room. It could be an incentive to get down and come live next time. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Who knows what our next guest will turn up with?
I don't need an incentive.
So yeah, you've set the bar quite high now, guys.
So, I know we're a little bit early, but can we have the next beer?
Oh, because your glass is empty.
No, yeah, exactly.
No,
I mean, we can
that's
talk. We can do the
Where's your
questions.
reserve pint? Have you
Exactly.
drunk that as well?
Oh, good shout.
Yeah, don't worry, he's got his reserve.
I got my
pint.
reserve, don't
It's
worry.
fine. So we'll do some questions. First one for you, Jager. Do you have any advice for women brewing in the industry or for women in general involved in the industry? And that's from Jess, who's in our sales team at the back over there.
I would say things are going in a generally a more positive direction now than they were when I first started working in this industry. You see a lot more women around generally, and a lot more women in more powerful positions, like women who are becoming obviously head brewers, business owners, sales managers. And that's kind of the direction we need to continue to go in collectively. One of the most useful things that I found has been part of female-led groups. So in London we have the Crafty Beer Girls. I know in Liverpool there's Ladies That Beer. There's the Brum Beer Babs. There's the Glasgow Ladies. So there are groups all around the country, and for me that's been a really amazing support network. But I would say to any women in the industry, get educated. There is a kind of a need, and I'm not saying it's necessary, I'm saying it's something that I found that's been a requirement of my career, has been something to be more provably educated in a way. Unfortunately, it's a terrible thing, but unfortunately it's been something that's been very positive in my career, has been get it on paper, if that makes sense. If anyone questions you, you're like, oh, let me just here's my piece of paper.
Because you're held to a higher standard.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So and it's not a nice thing, but I found that really helpful, is to get it written down, and yeah, just generally go for it. I mean, I don't know what it's like for you guys. I mean, it's one of the things that I found generally when like interviewing people, that there is like often women don't say like the things that they're awesome at in a way that sometimes a man does, and often they undersell themselves in the opposite way to a man does. But I would just say, always go for that, especially internal promotions and that sort of thing. Even if you're underqualified, show that confidence, even if you don't feel that confidence. And that can be really helpful. So I don't know if that's helpful to you, but yeah.
And if I could add one more group name. I'll do that in a second. If I could just add one more business or local group to the list you mentioned there, because she'll kill me if I don't. Women on Tap is organised by our very own Rachel Orty, who is our head of marketing, and they do a festival each May. I think it's May.
Harrogate,
in Harrogate, which is all about women in the industry, how they're advancing, and yeah, it's a really good thing. So you need to get down to it if you can.
And then we just got another shout out. You've already embarrassed her a couple of times today, but Nadia led the brew today, didn't she?
So Nadia joined us as an apprentice about 18 months ago. During that time, she's been promoted 3 times. We took her off the apprentice program early, and just this week, she's found out she's qualified with distinction.
No.
So, as promised, I now owe her a very special bottle of beer.
Yeah, no, she's done so well. And then, yeah, when the examiner came in, I kind of felt I had to avoid the brewery because I didn't want to walk in and like do something contravening health and safety or something in front of someone being examined.
Like not have your high vis on or something.
Yeah, exactly, like today. But no, she's done so well, and the team as well have helped and supported her, and she's been a breath of fresh air, hasn't been in learning, going on the scheme and actually.
She's been brilliant.
Massively advancing what we've been doing as well.
But it's not about male. It's not about being female. I know I'll be putting words in your mouth here, but you don't like to be referred to as a female brewer. You're a brewer first. It just so happens that you're a female that is a brewer.
Yeah, it's one of those things where obviously it's something that gets picked up a lot, but I mean, I make award-winning beers. You know, I mean, I'm successful in my own right. I am a woman, and that's fantastic. But I've always been a brewer first when it comes to making great beer. So
Exactly. Drink the beer, and people will enjoy it. And then when they learn more about you, then that's a bonus. But ultimately, you make great beer, and that's the key, isn't it?
Right. Coming to you with this one next, Will. Can you tell us what inspired you to start Wildcard and how you made it a reality?
Okay. Yeah. So things were really, really different then. And
Back in the day.
this is 2012, isn't it?
yeah, this is a long time ago.
2012, yeah.
This is like
So how congested was the market back then?
yeah. So I'm talking like 2010. This was so. I worked for a long while 5 or 6 years for a pub that was part of a regional brewery, Castle Rock. Shout out.
Yeah. What pub was it? Because I bet a lot of people have been.
Yeah, yeah. The pub. It was the Swan in the Rushes in Loughborough. Yeah,
No, maybe not.
fine establishment.
Ant's been.
Yeah, it's a fine establishment.
yeah.
But Ant's been to
Excellent.
95% of the pubs in the UK.
Was it on that list of the of Ross Kemp's best pubs in the UK?
No. This is no. It's so I was working with them in the pub, fell in love with the beer, and I kind of decided that I wanted to go into brewing. And the big thing that changed is because I worked at the pubs, I'd kind of gotten in, and I could ask the guys, can I come into brewing with you guys? And at the time, there was people coming out of university with degrees and going into brewing in, Burton-on-Trent, the bigger breweries, into some head brewer positions in the regionals. But mainly it was like dead man shoe stuff, right? It was like, if you knew somebody or you worked at one of the pubs, you could get in as the barrel washer number 2.
Yeah.
When barrel washer number 1 got promoted and or died, you get the coveted position loading the barrels
How are
rather
you
than
doing the
scraping.
and or?
Yeah.
So he might have got promoted and died.
Yeah.
So yeah, with his heart attack because he got promoted. Just didn't happen.
I
No,
don't
of
mean to
course.
interrupt you for
And,
that.
and by that way, everyone had kind of, move up, and you had, the forklift driver and the malt guy and the kind of shift brewers and the fillers and stuff, and that's how you kind of got into brewers in general in those times. And there wasn't very many of them, so like I was a home brewer, and doing some reasonably wild stuff. Like I had a jasmine beer in like 2007 or something that people would like spit out when you gave it to them. It's like
Back in your face.
yeah, like what is this? And it was tough to get into the industry. And unlike Jay's background's chemical engineering, which is like real heavyweight for the brewing industry, whereas mine's not. And I just couldn't get in anywhere. Interviewed in a bunch of places as like clean the yard guy or wash the barrels guy, and just wasn't happening. Andy J and I knew each other, similar kind of interests, and then it was like, well, if no one's going to give us a job, what we're going to do, And then it just kind of went from there. So and it very like inauspicious start Wildcard Brewery really.
Oh yeah, we had no money. That was basically the start.
Yeah, so we got hold of a tiny bit of debt on credit cards, and we rented a day's use of Brentwood Brewery in Essex. Got on the train from London, went there, brewed the beer. They saw us through racking and stuff like that, and then we were swapping. I think it was a week, wasn't it? It was a cask. We were swapping a cask of beer a week in exchange for using the cellar of the pub we now lease as our distribution centre. So it was all very like seat of the pants stuff. Like there was no brewery, we didn't have any money, and that's how we kind of got at it.
How London though? Because you both Nottingham.
Yeah, financial crash, went down to the capital looking for work, that kind of stuff, you know, that was, yeah.
Figured London would be cheap to start a brewery.
Yeah. I mean, mate, there was, you know, at the
Warehouses,
time there was like a brewery for every 1 million people or something stupid like that.
Yeah,
Do you know
it
what I
wasn't
mean?
like, it wasn't a conscious thought. We just ended up, we were in London for just generally for work. And we were just all there, and we thought, oh.
Would you have any sense of how many like UK actively brewing breweries there was at that time? I think it's about 1850 now, but how many do you think there was back
I know
then?
in London at the time when we started, so there was 10 breweries when we started.
And that's including you like Fuller's and that kind of stuff.
And then now today, there's around about 110.
And 2 of them are gone, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the growth has been astronomical.
Yeah, London particularly had a bit of a...
No, it was all over the country. It was all over the country.
Yeah, but stuff like the cask tradition wasn't so strong. So considering how many people there were and how many bars, the kind of, you know, like pubs with 12 pumps and pork pies were pretty sort of few and far between, whereas, you know, York or Nottingham, you kind of had that still.
That's the thing,
Yeah, whereas, you know, it's just like when we started, at least, it was very, like, macros were running the show, you know. They had all the lines and cask wasn't big and,
And they probably had their horses to deliver the beer still.
Yeah, I think they still have the horse and cart every now and again, you know what I mean?
But I'm proper geeky about old school breweries and looking at what they used to do. But the draymen used to like rock up and have a pint in every pub, didn't they? They drop the
Yeah,
boat,
at least
have
a
a
half
pint,
in every
at
pub,
least,
yeah.
and then carry on. How can you even one work like that, but two, do it fulfill your job?
In hindsight, pretty good sales technique.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love a weird drain. I love a weird drain. In fact, there's still a couple of breweries in the UK who deliver the 4 times size. You've got Firkin,
Hogshead.
Hogshead.
Hogshead,
Yeah, there's still
yeah.
some guys who
The-
deliver
the-
Hogshead.
the barrel
And
and
there's I've not seen one dropped off, but I've seen one collected. And there's a special, rather than lifting it up, there's a special belt. This is for the empty. There's a special belt you wear with a hook on it that you attach to the barrel and back away from the pub, dragging it up. It's crazy.
For the uninitiated, what we're talking about is a standard cask is called a Firkin. It holds 72 pints. If it's made out of steel, it probably weighs about 50 kilos.
Full.
Once full, yeah. You then have the next up from that, which is called a Kilderkin. Holds 18 gallons. It has 144 pints, if my maths is good. So that's then going to weigh about 100 kilos. And what we're talking about here is double that again.
Yeah.
So we're talking about something that weighs 200 kilos and somebody has the responsibility of
Getting
delivering that.
it off a van and down the cellar.
We did a collaboration with Castle Rock Brewery, and they still had in active use hogsheads. I'm not joking. I was like, how the hell do you even move
their
those
fleet,
around?
With modern health and safety policies
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
this kind of
Hey,
stuff.
Apparently, it's
I'm not going to drop them in it.
it.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop them in it. I'll back them now. As their racking floor is like raised up above street level, so they rack their barrels at van height. And then they go straight onto the dray without being lifted or dropped.
And
or
then they worry about the landlord afterwards.
That's
Isn't that
ingenious
what-
at
Yeah,
their
yeah,
end, but then how is it getting in the landlord's cellar?
I'm sure it's extremely safe.
We've waffled, well not waffled, we've told you some really interesting stuff. We're aware we're a little bit behind in pouring this beer, so vegan Tonkoko next, please.
Yeah.
And we will pick this up and talk
So
about...
you're talking,
I'll talk about more about how we manage it. I remember doing a delivery into... I'm waffling. Vegan Tonkoko, I bet you can guess what this is. It's a coconut, chocolate, Tonka and vanilla milk stout. But instead of being a milk stout made with lactose, we've used maltodextrins. We've got rid of the lactose, made a completely vegan-friendly version of our best-selling milk stout.
There you go.
But it's not that simple, though. It's not just a case of swapping out the lactose for maltodextrin. Maltodextrin, which we always talk about, is what you used to make candy floss. If it was that simple, we would have done it a long time ago. We've had to change lots of different things up in the recipe to try and get the mash right, the temperature we basically mix the water and the grain in at, to try and still replicate the same body we used to get with the standard Tonkoko, but also give it the same flavour profile at the end of the beer. So it's a bit of a funny one because we appreciate that. Some of you will really appreciate us putting a beer out that no one else has tried yet, and it's a vegan-friendly version. Some of you probably don't care whether it's vegan-friendly or not. But one of the things that this beer should hopefully do is make the beer much more accessible, which means more pubs will hopefully buy it. So if you like the original version of Tonkoko, hopefully you'll see a version more often than you currently do. So there is a method behind the madness, but also in general, some of the more interesting specials we do, we want to get the technique perfected so that when we do a new special that happens to be a milk stout or an imperial stout or whatever we do, it doesn't always have to have lactose in, so we can make it more accessible for the wider public.
How was it in terms of the challenge of, obviously lactose gives you a natural like creaminess. How was that, how did you manage to work around that?
So I don't think we've done it in this one, but in other beers what I've done is there's a certain silkiness that you can get from oats. So I would amplify the use of oat content to kind of create a certain amount of it. I don't think it quite does the same, but it bridges the bigger part of the gap, I would say. Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the key things that lactose has certainly helped us a lot with over the years is giving you full mouthfeel, full body. We joked about this the other week because if you, what's it called, the menu on Disney, I don't know if you've seen the film yet, but they say, don't you say mouthfeel when you're talking about food, but well, we have to say it when we talk about beer because genuinely that's what helps with your flavour perception. And
if you haven't seen that film, you should see it.
It's good.
It's a really good kind of take on modern society and the way we kind of view our food and our drink, and start at that point and see where you get led. It's entertaining. I can't say any more because it'll ruin it for you.
But it does make a big difference, especially when this beer in particular is only 4.3%. So typically when we make a flavoured stout, we go for higher strength because we can do a lot more. You can get the body much thicker. You can get it can balance out some of the stronger alcohol can be balanced out by the flavours we put in. Whereas the lower you go, the more delicate the flavour profile is in the body. So you've got to work harder. And I think the guys have done a great job at this. I tried the cask version, even though it's not released yet. We tried the cask version last week at an event we were pouring at when we were like, oh, how is this pouring?
Yeah, we got to this pub just outside of Stoke and we're like, how have you got on cask a beer we've not released yet?
Yeah. The sales guys got a little bit excited. Thankfully, that no one's in the room from the sales team, so I've not upset them. But yeah, we managed to release it early.
We were very happy to try it,
Yeah,
and,
really pleased
and it was great on cask because any dark beer is better on cask. The serving temperature is so much more appropriate to the serving of this kind of
the
thing.
The Northerners in us, we love the sparkler effect on a dark beer.
And as I was finding with that, as I'm finding with this, the balance of flavours has been completely changed by dropping the lactose and bringing in the malted action. I would say on your typical Tonkoko, the coconut is the more forward thing, and I think because of the creaminess of the lactose, that's perhaps enhancing that. That's making that the case. With this, the coconut isn't the forward thing. It's the Tonka that's the forward thing here now.
The other thing, the consistency we've got is the lack of head retention. So when we put toasted coconut into a beer, it kills the head almost straight away. So when you pour it on cask, it'll last a little longer. But yours in particular is literally looks like Coke already. Mine's not too far off, and so is Lee's. The head retention is killed by the oil in the coconut, and it's something that we've chosen to sacrifice because if you put coconut flavouring in or I don't know what about essence, you don't quite get the same. It doesn't work the same. So I'd rather sacrifice the head on the pint and have the great flavour than.
And as we've said before, that's how you can tell the difference. If it's real coconut, you're not likely to have a head in here. If they've used something fake, you may well have a head. Anyway, my turn. I will be back shortly. Shall I give that?
So that's the beer. We won't move on to the next topic yet, which I haven't quite read what it is because Lee did the notes. But we'll maybe go for a couple of questions while he's on the toilet. So we've got a question for yourself. Any plans to bring back Beer Masters? That's from Tony. So this is your TV series with the awesome Mr. Blunt.
Yeah. So if anyone's seen it, it's on Amazon Prime. If anyone's not seen it, please watch it. Give us a nice review. Helps a girl get a season 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know is the honest answer to that question. So, but I also would be the last to know.
Yeah.
So I'm hired as a presenter on that show. So all the deals would happen behind the scenes, and then
they'd give you a call.
if they wanted to have me again, they would call me. So I'd be the last to know.
Should do
The answer.
like a professional series where instead of the home brewers, they get.
I would love to do
it'd be
that.
so cool.
Wouldn't that
wouldn't
be
it? Bring
great?
breweries in, and we just get to go nuts with like. We don't have to sell it, do we? We
Yeah,
literally
it could be
can make the
anything,
best beer
yeah,
ever.
yeah.
We don't have to sell it, and we could go so nuts.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool. So let's present that to the Amazon beer maker.
Should we just do it ourselves?
Yeah, just do it ourselves. Yeah, we've
there
got
you go.
YouTube cameras. We can make the best series ever. But yeah, that would be really cool. Another one for yourself. Any plans to team up with with James Blunt for another? Oh, there we go.
Yes,
Same
so
question.
question.
Oh, is this from you, Anne?
It might be.
Do you West Ham?
Do you West Ham?
Football's silly.
Football's silly.
You're right.
Correct.
I have
What's-
nothing further to add to that.
What's James Blunt like in person?
Oh,
Yeah,
Is he
no.
beautiful?
So James Blunt, okay, he's identical to his Twitter persona.
Oh, brilliant. He's
Yeah,
got
in
that
real
type
life,
of
just like
personality.
constant
quick.
puns.
Yeah.
Yeah, constant puns. He's very nice, very nice.
He seems it, and I just like the fact that people give him shit and he just doesn't care. And
Does
he
he
just
drink in the pub?
shakes it off.
He has his own pub, you know. He has his own pub.
Really good
so
one.
so he's a bit of a beer fan actually. He has his own pub, and yeah, just he's a bit of a beer fan. He won't be presenting the beer show.
I don't know if you've done this, but I love his Twitter personality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There is nobody better at giving it back than him.
Yeah.
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 Program and all.
Beer Masters.
So on Amazon,
So which of these have you done so I don't do it again?
The nearer
that
pile.
pile's done. This
That
one's-
pal's done. Right. Sure.
So another one for you. You're getting all the questions today. Oh, but he's not even going to read you one.
I was looking at both of them first. Where Jaeger has done a lot of advocacy, what is the change in the beer industry she's enjoyed seeing? That's a good question.
Oh, for me personally, it's been fantastic to see in the beer industry the change on the question of what is and is not acceptable.
Yeah.
Do you remember even 5, 6
Oh
years
God,
ago?
the pump clips. Are you
The
going to say
pump
that?
clips.
Yeah.
That Books and
And-
Blondes, that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
and even now there's like a standard across the whole industry. If you see something, all of us go like, ooh.
Yeah.
Name and shame.
That's kind of not okay.
Yeah, exactly. We can. Before it was like it was cringed at, but accepted. That's just what happens. Whereas now it's no, that's just not acceptable.
not
It gets,
acceptable,
gets
yeah.
called out, not just cringed at
Immediately.
and ignored.
So it's been the whole industry seems to have risen up to say, even within ourselves, calling out other brewers and people sometimes who are your friends,
Yeah.
and you have to say that's not okay, etc., etc. So that's been quite a positive overall shift across the industry. But I think we've done more than that in terms of the change in the Portman Group Code. So in order to make it not only not acceptable socially, but also not acceptable from a legislation kind of standpoint. So if there is a problem, that can be reported to the Portman Group and that beer can be removed from sale. And I think it's important that that's been done across not just beer, it's been done across cider, across wine, across spirits.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
No, what they've done there is great, but unfortunately some of that has been interpreted in a way that's been used to benefit macro and disadvantage more minor players.
In what sense?
So we've been pulled up by the Portman Group.
Are you talking about the label for like childish labelling?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So that particular side, it's quite an old section of the Portman Group Code that's quite separate from the section I'm talking about.
Okay.
So
But in terms of that, I understand and I agree. But in terms of the section that I'm talking about was within the Portman Group's code. What was protected was not making a beer look childlike. So that was seen as something really important. But what wasn't protected is sexual advances towards women. Racism wasn't protected. Homophobia wasn't protected. So it would be perfectly possible, impossible for you to have a beer that had like a childlike cartoon on it, yet you can have something sexist, racist, homophobic on there, and you wouldn't get pulled up for that, but you would get pulled up for the childlike cartoon. So I mean,
serious double standard.
yeah, a serious double standard. So I mean, I'm not going to make much comment on the child because I know that's controversial within the industry.
We've probably said enough on that in the past.
I know it's controversial,
Yeah,
but
but
it's also I think I think it's important that these things are not just spoken about amongst us as colleagues and friends. This is something that needs to be written down and something that needs to be in the rule book.
Yeah. And the fact that it's not just somebody saying, oh, I don't think that's appropriate. It's like, that's not appropriate. I'm going to actually tell somebody about it, and you're going to have to take that product off. Not just that pub itself taking it off. So you got cut off a couple of times.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a bit of a strange quirk really, because this stuff happened a long time ago when it comes to most other product categories, and there was already legislation governing that and bodies overseeing that. So a good example would be like kind of anything to do with like washing up liquid or anything like that when we were kids. When you see those adverts kind of retrospectively, they were very sexist. And that was kind of ironed out in between now and then by a regulator.
Under the radar.
It was always the woman in the kitchen doing the washing
exactly.
up.
And that was done by a regulator, but alcohol kind of fell outside of those changes that came to all the other products that we eat and drink. The regulators kind of tightened up on them, and alcohol was given a slight pass. I think is the because I guess
it's self-governing.
And it's possibly one of the reasons why we were having an offline conversation earlier about. We have to encounter, don't get me wrong, we have amazing customers who come and see us and amazing customers come to our bars. We also have dicks, unfortunately, who come to see us, who are so outdated. And they are so rude and they say really upsetting things to people, to our team. And we have to put on a brave face, smile and serve them. But if they ever personally attack our team, we'd never accept that. But they are still very rude and they're very outdated in their opinions.
Yeah, I suppose for a long time people just said, well, it's just beer, isn't it? Or they said, well, that's just the way the hospitality industry is. That's kind of where we've been.
So long.
And I'd also definitely say I think the most positive thing out of the whole experience that I have viewed is big shout out to all the trad beer companies who had historic labels and changed them to something new and good. Like fair play to all them guys. They could have been really, you know what I mean? They've chosen a more positive, progressive approach.
For 20 years.
That's really cool.
Why should we change? Well, because
and I guess I'd witnessed that change come about, and I'm kind of in the bubble.
Yeah.
But you make a good point, because that was really quick change. It was like that for so long, and then it wasn't overnight, but in maybe a 1 to 2 year period. The vast majority of that went.
That wasn't easy. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work going on behind the scenes. A lot of work with the trade body. A lot of work with camera. Like there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes.
And good work from I'm sure yourself and a lot of other people had a lot of input into that.
Lots of people.
It's really good to hear that people are still fighting hard to improve our industry and improve what the customers experience in the bars. So, thank you.
So this one's for you again, but I'm not asking you. I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
Because I don't think this needs to be specific. What are your breweries up north and why? And you don't have to say Brew York.
What your favourite phrase?
Oh, favourites?
Well, it says, what are your breweries?
What are your breweries?
So I presume
what's
it's
your favourite York brewery?
What would be your go-to?
York breweries are up north.
No, not York. Not York. That's a
north.
very restricted list.
And when you say up north, do you mean like the way London feels about the north? So talking like sort of Watford and up?
I believe the accepted barrier is the Watford Gap, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought we were saying north of Tadcaster.
South of I mean, these guys, Brew York, are pretty good. Like, we like their stuff. No, seriously, we when we met in Copenhagen, met you guys in Copenhagen, you had a Tonka bean stout on your draft, and we were like really impressed. That was the love at first sight.
May have been the next beer that we're
great.
Do,
we love your stuff. Is Nottingham far north enough? Liquid Light. Liquid Light. I really rate their stuff. I think they're absolutely fab.
Doing some really good stuff. Have you tried?
I don't even know if I've had
There's a brewery.
They're amazing. They're amazing.
What's the brewery from Nottingham called? That's
You're going to say you're going to say Bang the Elephant.
Yes. Have you tried any Bang the Elephant?
No.
We don't know them.
So I don't know them either, but Ian, the guy who owns Squilo, he did a collab with them recently, and he told me how great their beers were, and I just haven't tried.
We're back in Knots this weekend, so we'll have
see if
a
you
look.
can find some. Yeah. Tell me if they're good. Are they? Wow.
Top five and Untapped, and we don't know them. But anyway, that's the way things are these days.
Yeah, and continuing in the Londoner vein, I think Dig Brew of Birmingham are an excellent northern brewery.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I thought they'd gone.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But still.
So we brewed a collab with them pre-COVID.
Oh, that'd be about 4 or 5 years ago, that one.
They got. We went to do a festival in Birmingham, and At the time, they had a brewer called Don. And he was the only person
Donica.
I love this man. Don.
He
I love
got
him.
so drunk. As usually, someone
That's how I've
outdrinks
ever
me. I don't mean outdrinks me, as in like outdrunks me.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
God, we've only just started, and you were asleep on a bench. He's a great guy, but oh my God, he was asleep on the bench after about
No,
that.
shout out to them guys.
Because his name's Donica, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when it's written down, I always want to say, don't you go through what's like.
Yeah, we
It's like
we,
Doncha.
At least you're not on camera.
It says Doncha.
we
That's how it's
collabed with
written
them guys in
December.
December, and awesome guys. Awful thing to happen. And,
You aren't like the curse. You're not going to.
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah.
It's all right.
down. No, well,
Well, it's a really tough time. We always say this on our talks. People, without being really negative, but it's such a tough time for the brewing industry as a whole, and there's a absolute knobhead of a company, and
I was
you
just
guys are about to
deciding
be
whether
stung
we
by that.
mention
Of
this
course
or
we
not,
do.
but
Not
you're
by
going
name.
straight in.
So the subscription company Beer Nuts are
Oh, we're
absolute
fully going in.
crooks. They're absolute crooks. They owe at least a dozen, if not more, breweries a lot of money. More 10.
Is there
like,
anything I can say at
10K
this point that
plus
makes this
fees.
not libelous?
Sorry, I was talking about BEER.
Oh,
Are we talking about someone else? Sorry.
I believe you have to put
We
the
haven't said
word
anything.
allegedly
Yeah, you just said that
at the end of each
Yeah,
statement.
allegedly.
If you put the word allegedly, then
Allegedly,
it will
owes
be okay.
breweries money.
Right.
But yeah, we're not going to put you guys on camera saying anything like this. But they owe loads of breweries money, and this is just unacceptable. And they're going to wrap their company up, and everyone's going to end up having to write off all these debts.
Yeah,
which
I'll
can't afford to
I'll
do.
say what I'll say what I think can be said legally. Someone on Twitter posted today that they believe they have gone into administration. They allegedly have 13 county court judgments against them. So that's at least 13 people they owe money to. I'm sure that's a bigger number. All of that's in the public domain. We should be safe in saying that. bit.
Yeah, and I've heard rumours that it's worse than that, but allegedly I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I would say generally across the industry, it's a really horrible time at
Yeah,
the moment.
tough
so,
time.
So we went out yesterday in Nottingham, and
out there,
we were
man.
walking around. Thursday night, you typically think that'd be a pretty busy night. But just bar after bar after bar was just dead.
Yeah, tough
Like
out there.
it's really tough out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have a big office culture in Nottingham? Because what we found with our bar in Leeds, it's really struggled through the week because it once was a massive office culture.
Yeah.
And because of the pandemic, people have not returned to those offices. So you're not getting the midweek trade anymore. We're literally functioning on what we get through the weekend.
And then we've got our like out of town venues like Park, and then we've got these guys keeping the bar propped up all week, every day of the week. So the out of town.
Monday, Tuesday.
As soon as we are, you'll pop us up on Monday.
He'll be in.
Yeah. So,
I think the largest problem is not even so much the change in habits. I think the largest problem is people haven't got any money.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think generally,
Massively.
I think people are choosing, rather than go out a couple of times a week, people are more conserving.
Yeah.
They're going out.
Heating
maybe
food
once
or
a week, once
partying,
every
what we're
2
doing.
weeks.
Yeah, man.
Heating, food or partying,
without-
what we're doing.
It's just so I think a lot of the issues we're seeing in hospitality generally are larger than what we can solve.
Spending
They
power.
are
innit?
governmental.
Yeah, it's all these
Where
energy
you
firms
are.
making billions of
Yeah.
pounds profit.
Because places like Pocklington, which is a small market town, that is busy enough.
And you guys can light a bonfire and all stand around it and stay warm. You don't have to spend money on the energy then, do you?
It's a different situation.
Yeah,
today.
Depending where you
Yeah.
are.
It
Right,
It's
that's
massively. And also, there's the people underplay it all the time, but the pub is such a big part in our enjoyment in life and mental health and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's nice to go have a pint, unwind, and then maybe head home. Or you don't have to more than a pint. You can have as many. You can do what you want, but it's such a big part in unwinding and relaxing, and going into a city centre and all the stress involved in that is not that relaxing. So
Pocklington's
market
a
pubs.
community.
Yeah,
So
community pub.
The venue is a community.
Hey, the Pocklington Tourist Board have done a number on
I
that.
know. Pocklington Tourist Board.
I'm going there next.
Anyone joining in tonight, you need to
No.
go to Pocklington.
But I think what this demonstrates is another consumer trend where people are moving away from drinking in big cities and they're drinking more locally. I think that was
Yeah, that's
trending
probably true,
anywhere,
yeah.
and it's definitely happened.
And you're locked down.
I think that trend has sped up because of the pandemic. So people, rather than staying and having that pint after work, are going back to their market towns, wherever they might live, and they're drinking in those areas instead.
And yeah, I also think it's important to be said that inflation is higher in the food and drink sector than it
Yeah,
is
that's
across
true.
other sectors. So we feel it harder in food and drink than others in other sectors.
And if we could truly pass on the cost inflations that we're feeling, you guys would be having nightmares. But we can't do that. We have to absorb a certain proportion of that to keep your price of a pint realistic.
So it looks
On that
like.
positive note.
Yeah, I'm going to the toilet then. I genuinely am, but I'll eat.
Oh, you can't help himself.
There's a lot of toilet breaks on this show.
Oh, no, there's no way.
That's where he's involved, yeah.
No.
Hey, you should just get some buckets underneath the
I was
desk.
thinking more of one of those piss bags or whatever you call it.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go into any more detail on that. Right, so what we're supposed to be talking about at this point in time
The mainstream media.
is, well, I thought, given your kind of position in the industry, it would be an appropriate thing to discuss craft beer in the mainstream media as a kind of measure of our progress as an industry. So if we think about how big it is in the US, it's really just an accepted part of everything they do over there. You see it all the time. Whereas mainstream media over here, I'm in the bubble, but the bits I see tend to be the negative brewdog type things. So what's your perspective? Where do you think we are as an industry in terms of how we're viewed mainstream-wise?
How we're viewed mainstream-wise, it's quite tricky because don't forget in the space that I'm in. So I work a lot with like the kind of foodie kind of world, and beer is 100% still on the periphery. In terms of it's very difficult to get that slot on a show where you're doing beer with food.
Because you've
Over
done
wine
the
with
food
food.
program, you've done, what was the wine one?
Oh, I've done all sorts. I've done the wine show, I've done Steps Pack Lunch, I've done someone on BBC, Inside the Factory. I've done quite a lot, but I'm saying it's not as getting mainstream shows on British television about beer is not straightforward. It's not easy.
It's still I think
It's still niche.
Yeah, part of the problem is it still lacks the kind of like prestige and glitz of wine and whiskey
Bacon.
and yeah. And well, you know, actually, like one thing that Jay talked to me a lot about during the Amazon TV show, the Great Beer,
Beer Masters,
the
yeah.
Beer Masters, is
That's because you just mentioned the bacon thing. No, he set you up there by mentioning the bacon
Just
thing.
finish it. It's all right. It's all right.
the baking one and the pottery one and the fixing cars one and all the reality TV shows. The content can be done in a day. Whereas brewing is difficult because all of those shows, the kind of like behind the scenes premise, right, is they get everybody together, put them all up in like Premiere in, and then they have them in the studio for 3 days and they film the whole series or a week or how long it takes. And all of the action happens in like day slots. So the bit where there's like time pressure and they get it wrong and drop it and all of that stuff all happens within a day. Whereas brewing, like
It's going wrong. It's like that like
slow
steamroller heading towards you. Yeah.
and you can't follow two blokes from Belgium around with a film crew for like 6 weeks, can you? I mean, you could, but it'd be weird.
They're sat in the cafe stressing about their fermentation not quite
Was
going to plan.
but I might have this one. It's like 6 episodes. That's a minimum of 3 weeks to turn a beer around. Some of it you were doing like Pilsner type styles, so that's longer again still.
So there was a lot of TV magic involved in that.
But most people won't get that. But like what you're saying,
Yeah.
that's a disincentive to make those kind of shows
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they're so protracted.
Yeah.
So apologies, when I went to the loo for the second time, it wasn't my knees creaking. We've got a squeaky door, so if you're hearing the squeak in the background, it's not mine.
And I do remember us saying after the last time we must put some WD-40 on that, and we've not done that. So
Well, let's use some
Somebody remind us next
Tonkoko and see if the oil from the Tonka, from the coconut and Tonka helps it out. So should we get the next beer pouring, and then we'll talk a little bit about some other mainstream beer?
Yeah, I'd be interested to carry on with the conversation because
while we're pouring.
I think the mainstream
I've just got an empty glass
in
again.
the UK, for the most people who don't know beer, who are not in our bubble, all they will see is things like Brewdog pulled up
Can
for
each of 10.6.
hostile work environment, Brewdog pulled up for advertising complaint, Brewdog pulled up for sexism in the work environment, like all these kind of things. So
A lot of what you see in the public domain is one business, and what is and isn't happening.
Because they're the only one that have the scale to really get the headlines.
Whereas there's all sorts going on that's actually really good. We'd like to tell you about, and hopefully we do tell you a little about on this. But yeah, it'd be great to have more of that on TV or in public domain.
I think you know, with the whole TV thing, I think, and it's part of the reasons why Brewdog generates so many headlines is regardless of what you think of them, they entertain you. And what we're looking at when you're looking at the media world and the television world, like they don't really care about how good a drink tastes or how it looks or any of the things that we care about. It's the entertainment industry. It's how do we do something that is worthy of television.
Novel.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's about, and I'm not sure whether we've collectively captured that. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm saying it's the reality of what it is.
Yeah.
How do you make craft beer mainstream? It's still quite niche. It's seen as quite niche.
It's quite niche, and I think you've hit the nail on the head in saying it's not quite elite enough. It's not quite refined enough, perhaps, to get those column inches or that TV coverage.
The majority have sat this side of the panel. More faces for radio. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we've all got beards and bellies. We don't sell it.
That might be some of the problem, you know.
Yeah,
Like Fred, what's his name? What's his name? That Fred guy?
Fred Syriac.
Yeah, you know, we're hardly him, are we? You know what I mean? Like maybe if we look like sexy
Fred
Fred.
Fred Dibner, the chimney guy from
The engineering guy.
yeah, Fred Dibner.
Yeah, Dibner, yeah. It was a different time.
Who free climbed up that massive chimney.
Yeah, he was impressive.
Dibner.
Yeah, a little bit of Dibner. but it's a really good point, that, because it's been a long time since I've ever even heard of well, there was one very recent which we can talk about in a minute, but a Brewdog beer, and it feels like they don't really care whether people like it or not. That's just their beer that's gone out there, and all of a sudden the new one.
It's
That used to
almost
be
like
Jet
their
Black
macro,
Heart.
and it's more about the marketing, isn't
Well,
it?
the Jet Black Heart is now Jet Black, isn't it? And their glasses look very much like Anspach's London Black.
But I
And they're
love
trying
that.
to push the stout.
Yeah, the London Black campaign thing has been awesome. Like really, really cool. Really, really cool. And it's like I really thought what they did there was like the beer's great. Like getting the nitro lines put in places is really cool. You see it all over the place.
And also that's a
really impressed
logistical
by that
challenge
one.
as
Yeah,
well, because
massive.
not everywhere.
It's real cool.
For those who don't work in the beer scene, so nitro beer is like particularly difficult because not a lot of places are set up to do craft nitro.
No one's going to give up the Guinness line.
No one's gonna give up the
because
Guinness
So you
line.
require
Guinness.
You need to be able to mix gas serves, so you've got to have a different type of dispense gas. You've got to have a special type of tap that allows the nitrogen to be released to create the cream.
Yeah.
So it's a completely custom setup for most bars to be able to dispense that kind of beer. And yeah, Anspach has done that really well. And what I really liked about the Brewdog launch was social media, when it is at its absolute best, is when it self-polices.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved that Brewdog were doing all this big push, and everyone went, yeah, but it's not London Black, though, is it? It's not as good as what about London Black? Yeah, but they've got London Black here. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant, the
cool
way
beer,
that
cool guy.
Twitter took Brewdog to school over that beer release.
Yeah.
Talk about the beer.
Oh yeah, sorry, we just finished off the last point. Sorry, yeah. I'm drinking
It's
it.
very delicious.
Yeah, it's
though.
real good. Real good.
It's noticeably stronger than the last one, that's for sure. Sorry.
You're not as subtle as you used to be, Ant.
Oh, the cameras didn't flash. So Pete's not on his flashing game either. So yeah, Empress Tonkoko. It says LG. That means Lee's.
I think that means it's me. So, yeah, so we first released this beer we first brewed it in January 2018. So there's a thing that happens every January called Triannuary. So you've got these kind of two opposite forces. One which is saying you need to moderate your intake, and one which is saying you should broaden your horizons and consume more beer. So we opted for the latter quite naturally. So we did a Triannuary event, and we brought lots of people in to brew a new iteration in the Tonkoko series. And then they got to name the beer on the day, and there was a lady there that we had called Sarah who we'd worked with on a particular marketing campaign, and she said we should call it Empress Tonkoko. So that's how it became called Empress Tonkoko. And it's beer that at that point we'd done Tonkoko, we'd done Imperial Tonkoko at 7.5. We then elevated this to 10.6. I don't know why such a random number. I've never really worked that one out. And then we made it that first year, and then we laid some down in barrels, and then we barrel aged it. And in the first year we did Jack Daniels, Buffalo Trace, and Wild Turkey. And that was our first major barrel aging project, and we got some fantastic results out of that. No, it was definitely 3. I've still got them at home.
Oh yeah, I've got this. Actually, yeah, because we had the 4-pack with the original. Yeah, I've got that set.
And it was this is going to sound big-headed. It was a great execution in barrel aging because you could distinctly taste the different whiskey, the different barrel that made each of those beers, and that's like barrel aging at its best. So the kind of Jack Daniels was sweet, and the Buffalo Trace was balanced, and the Wild Turkey was completely in your face, as like Wild Turkey is as a bourbon. So yeah, well, really, really cool.
I got a really good question from our friends. So it was the guys at Face up in Aberdeen. We know them pretty well, and the guys messaged me the other day. Said, "How do you get away with calling these barrel aged beers Buffalo Trace or whatever we are?" Well,
I think just because we're not on their radar.
Yeah, because we're not on the radar, because we are not associated with those distilleries at all. We've just bought their used barrels.
Yeah.
And it's like someone buying our used cans and start selling a beer as Brew York because they've swilled it through an empty can of Brew York. Not quite the same at all. But do you know what I mean? It's like we don't have an official reason or permission to use that. We just wanted you guys at home to realise what barrels we'd used.
In time, they'll get wise to that, and hopefully this doesn't preempt
so that's maybe what we'll end up putting on the back of a can. So instead of it being so prominent at the moment, it'll maybe wrote on the back that we've used it in a
we might have
amazing
to say that.
bourbon distillery. Bourbon.
It might end up being that's number 1, that's number 2, number 3, and then on the back you read to find out which one it's been.
We'll tell you which one, yeah exactly. But yeah, we probably shouldn't associate our other cans with that. But
It's a pun, isn't it?
yeah,
satire, no?
Oh yeah. We'll just find a way of
Satire,
exactly
no?
of pairing it. But God, when we first got the Jack Daniels barrels, the first year, because we hadn't barrel aged at this point, and it still had the
I had about a good litre of.
Was it good?
Bourbon still in it. We had to filter it because it was full of charcoal.
Yeah, it was like
but
Not good.
Yeah.
really good.
It was cast strength as well. They've not like blended it back down to like the 37 or whatever it gets served at then. So
So Empress has been a bit of a project for us for many years now, and managed to win a few awards with this one.
Yeah, so we've won the World Beer Awards Best UK Barrel Aged Beer in 2019 for the Buffalo Trace variant of this.
It's pretty good. We'll drink some in the tap room afterwards, but yeah, we are doing it on the tasting. Hopefully you guys at home have got the Buffalo Trace version from this year.
Although the one that's ranking highest this year is the rum one.
The rum, yeah.
So first year we've done rum. Like I said earlier, I don't know why coconut and rum never occurred to us before that point.
As if we haven't got a bottle of a rum that we
we now
do
actually
our
have a
own
coconut rum as well.
And it used to be called Tonkoko rum, but someone told us for a cease and desist we can't call it Tonkoko rum anymore. But that's not for today's camera.
We seem to say
We're
that
good
a
at
lot.
cease and desists.
Which is your favourite out of the three?
Which is Lee's favourite?
My favourite out of the three? No, I do like the rum. I think the long-term favourite in terms of through all the years that we've done it is the Buffalo Trace. And I get that because it is the most balanced. But for me, I like a more intense bourbon character. So when we did the Wild Turkey one, which we've not done for a few years, that was my preferred one.
For me, it's something similar where the Buffalo Trace one now is the one that's ingrained in my memory. So when I taste it, I'm like, that's what the barrel age should taste like. So I love that version. Whereas the rum's so different to what we've done before. That's my go-to this year. Like, wow, that's just not what we've done before. And I love a bit of rum as well. So.
And we've really refined what we do with those barrel-aged beers over the years. So in the first year, you were getting pure barrel-aged product. And then over time, we've gradually blended back in some of the younger product because the flavours, particularly the coconut, becomes very muted over time. So we would blend back in a proportion of the immature product to kind of really elevate that flavour again. Since we've started doing that, I think these beers have they're on point now.
We haven't gone down the Bacardi model because apparently you only need about 7% of actually real barrel-aged stuff to call it barrel-aged. We're not that extreme. We probably.
So I tried to research that, and it's really hard to find the stats on it. But there are certain countries in the world where you can call something barrel-aged and it doesn't have to have been in a barrel.
We'll get
But then other countries, it varies, and it has to be a certain percentage. And I think the one you're referring to, the lowest is, like something like 7% of it has to have been in a barrel.
It's quite a rabbit hole, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I think for us, maximum we'd use is maybe 20% fresh, 80% barrel aged. But that's just personal choice, and we taste the beer and work out from there.
It depends what beer as well, doesn't it? Because we, what was the year with the grapes? 2018?
The year of the grapes.
Yeah.
The year of the grapes, 2018 best
there's
crop
a very-
in the UK. No,
there's a
seriously,
there's
like,
a-
if you can get any wine with the 2018 crop, it's like largely seen as
There was a
an
really
incredible
hot
UK
summer,
vintage,
a really, really, really hot summer.
This is the terroir thing, and this is where vintage wines come from.
Yeah, so
Better grapes means better wine.
yeah, really, really hot summer, and we had some guy who lives near the brewery, who drinks in the brewery, contacted us and said, got these grapevines in the garden, sometimes they have a few token grapes on, I've got some grapes, do you want them? And we drove around there and I'd look, and it was like kilos and kilos and kilos and kilos of some unknown variety of white grape. So we crushed them and put the must and the juice in with a saison in a Rioja barrel, and it's delicious.
Yeah, I was thinking that's got saison written all over it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it's delicious, but it's intense. You know what I mean? Like you blended, it's incredible. So it's like we've had that experience as well as.
So is this one in the book?
It is in the book, it is in the book, yeah.
And it's
Available for
slowly,
purchase.
it's slowly coming ready.
Through Amazon and all other good retailers, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
Waterstones.
Yeah, you got to say the name. You got to.
It's called Wild Brews.
You got any signed copies for
Wild
the audience
Brews.
tonight?
I do not. I'm sorry, I do not. But it came out in May last year.
And now translated in.
Yeah, so it's in several countries. It's in the US. It's
It
in.
take a long time to translate.
Yeah.
Those. They
Oh,
speak really weird.
It's in.
You just have to drop all the U's.
Yeah.
It's in Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's in Danish. So yeah, it's
Why those two languages?
Because Spanish is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world.
Spanish makes sense to me. Danish is the next leap.
Beer drinkers.
Yeah.
Beer drinkers.
Okay, right, well, who are we to reason why? Eh?
well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going on a tangent here, but we're talking about the wine, the year of the wine, or the year of the grape. But the 2022 UK wine must be amazing because of how hot we had last year.
There are some incredible English winemakers at the moment.
There's some
Across the
serious
UK,
investment
some serious.
being made into UK wine production because of climate
Yeah,
change
'cause
and
of
where
climate
they see us going.
Yeah.
And it's been a controversial topic about, and I know it's not something that is nice to say, but climate change for the wine industry has produced better wine in the UK, and that's something it's a horrible thing to say, but it's something that's been a reality for the wine industry.
and it's helped. Yeah, exactly. It's helped an industry in our country. So we've got a few dates we want to tell everyone about, but I think we've got a couple of questions as well. But Anne's given us a heads up first.
No, he's trying to make sure I don't drop any spoilers, I think.
Well, spoiler alerts just
Because
given
I'm really bad at doing that. So he has to carefully moderate me,
before we go on
otherwise
to
I drop
spoiler
stuff
alert,
I'm not
then.
supposed to. You're not to Lou again.
No, I'm just going to tell you about next month's beers. So we've got a few interesting ones. We've got the Brave Noise beer we haven't launched yet, which we're going to tell you all about a lot more soon. But it's a 5.2%, and we take our twist on it as we've made it into West Coast Pale. So we're really, well, you guys may have tried some or may not have tried some this afternoon, but I enjoyed it this afternoon. When
But
we
you'll
read
be
it.
familiar with the cause.
Brave
I
Noise.
think we're a little bit late to the party on this one. So I think many other UK and international breweries have done this beer. It's produced by, or the concept is from an organisation about kind of bringing some focus to those that have been somewhat undermined or marginalised in the industry. Help me out here. What's a better way of saying this?
Well,
Marginalised communities.
I don't think that's quite what I'm trying to say.
the
But anyway, tune in next month and you'll have a much better description of this from Rachel. More on that coming soon.
And then we've got a new beer coming out, which is a variant. I know you guys love our variants, especially when they're vegan versions or low alcohol versions. So we've got a high alcohol version coming out. So Deuce Forsyth. So it is basically juice, but I have to say Deuce because otherwise it just sounds like we're describing the original beer. We brought we're going to bring an 8% version of Deuce Forsyth out.
Yeah, so we had a planning session back end of last year, and we're like, we've got these really iconic brands. We've got Tonka, Tonkoko, we've got Juice Forsyth, and then we've got Tonkoko that we must have done 15 different variants of, and we've got Juice Forsyth where there's Juice Forsyth.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, maybe we need to start playing around with this a little bit more. So the first of 3 new variants you're going to see this year
Well,
is
second, because vegan was technically one.
third. All right, the third.
Not the vegan one.
Yeah. All right. What I should say is you've got one more to look forward to later on in the year. So yeah, this is the third of the 4 that will be this year. Right, so.
No, that's. I think it's fair to 5. I think we've got 2 coming up. Without going to the spoilers, there's 2
Jesus.
flavour variants. So anyway,
Keep watching this space. I think we've royally screwed
This
up
is what happens. We start drinking strong beers and we lose the plot. We've got Katy Berry's coming back, but Katy Berry in a slightly different form, so stronger. I wish there was a. Oh, that's another really. I was going to say different American pop artist, so stronger. So yeah, we've got
once again
5.5% version of Katy Berry coming back. So we've always brewed Katy Berry relatively low alcohol. It was about 4.
It was 4.5 last time.
So we bumped it by 1%, mainly because the blueberries are so fucking expensive. We need to make the beer match the price point that it comes in at, unfortunately.
So we thought we'd increase the duty and make it even more expensive.
Exactly, yeah, pretty much. But I think at 5.5%, it's going to hold itself a little bit better anyway. It's a great beer, and I'm looking forward to that one. And then we've got today's brew. What's it called, Lee?
Slice, baby.
A bit of vanilla slice.
Yes, indeed.
Cheesy, as always. So we usually tell you a little bit more about what's going to come in your boxes next month. We don't actually know. I know a couple of spoilers, but I'm not going to tell you them. We'll put them out on social media soon. But
well, I believe a rap-based / hip-hop-based beer that you all love is making a
I thought you said
return.
rat.
Rap, hip-hop.
It's a rap. Yeah, and we've got a guest collab. So a collab we've done. We've got some of that beer coming in for the next box, but the ins and outs of the box hasn't been agreed yet. So.
And events for you to look forward to. I asked you guys to pad out the February a little bit. The February's looking a little bit light. February is literally me being on holiday in Whitby tomorrow and popping into a couple of tap takeovers in the Green Dragon and Esqualt's. 1st of March, we have Brewboard coming here from Cambridge, and we're going to be doing a cask special. 7th of March, myself and Wayne depart for Tampa Beer Week over in Florida, where I understand it's going to be 27 degrees.
Oh, guys!
That's no good for my lily white skin.
I was going to say, we've got some Rabsy Nesbitt vests to put on. We'll be good.
I'll definitely be getting my full vest out, yeah. And also on the 7th of March, there will be a beer social for women held here in York to complement the International Women's Day brew that we're doing that week. That will be taking place on International Women's Day, which is the 8th of March. And we'll be following that up by Rachel, our very own Rachel, will be taking over this session on Friday the 10th of March. And we will be dialing in from the US to do the middle couple of beers. But Rachel and the other women of Brew York will be leading that session.
That's the biggest show all night, yeah. So you guys usually get involved in a big style, don't you, on International Women's Day for the
for years, haven't you?
Yeah,
So
it's pretty intense.
Your whole brewery has more people in than you can actually move.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. So we work quite hard because it's my 10th year hosting it this year. So
you did it from like year 2?
year 1. So
Year one,
I used to go to. I went to the original one. I turned up in a skirt. It's the hilarity of Sophie Durand that I turned up to brew in a skirt on Brew Day. But anyway, so
Burnt Mill?
yeah, she's not better.
She wasn't
in
then,
Essex,
She
yeah.
wasn't then, no. She wasn't then. So so this year we're going to be doing it. We do lots of talks, do lots of tastings. It's quite educational, and lots of women come from all over the country. So yeah, 100 plus who come down
Brewers,
to us. So and I keep it open to everybody. So all women are welcome to come. Lots of people come who are just beer fans. Lots of people come who are brewers.
Well, hopefully this is a complimentary rather than a conflicting event.
Oh no! It's
More the merrier.
you know, with this event, it's always been incredible to have events just all over the country, and it's been something that the whole purpose of this event is to is to educate and to promote women in beer. So the whole purpose of that is to have as many women involved as humanly possible. And that's all across the country and all across the world. So it can only be a positive thing, and the more the merrier.
And do you brew on the day itself, or do you aim to release a beer for the day? Because there seems to be two. You do both, right?
So it's been actually quite tricky with regards to, because lots of people want to have your beer on International Women's Day, but the whole concept of the project has been brewing together. So I kind of focus on brewing on the actual day, which can be very tricky to manage when you have so many people. But one of the advantageous things is when you have so many people on site, you can physically do something else. So you can we've done all sorts, like peeling hundreds of kilos of citrus fruits. We've rhubarb. We've done all sorts.
Hand labeling all the cans.
We went foraging.
It's
It's a lot of hands to occupy. A lot of people to keep busy.
How do you agree a recipe with that many
You don't.
people?
You don't. That's what I've learned.
No, it's Jay's house. It's Jay's
Yeah,
recipe,
it's my house,
isn't
so
it?
you can't.
Okay.
You know, too many cooks spoil the broth. That's what I've learned.
I could see that.
Yeah, after the lemon year, right? There was in the brewery kitchen. There's just 100 peelers and 100 chopping boards because we didn't have kit to
100 people outside crying because it's all squirting them in the eyes.
When outside of that day, are you ever going to use
Well, we didn't.
it?
We were just wading through peelers.
I wait for the next year to
Charity
to
shop.
But
Charity shop soon.
no, but it's a fun day.
So no, it's a shame that we're going to be in Tampa in Florida, sunning it when we can't join you.
Well, there was no chance of that sounding sincere.
Come on!
That was piss ball. That absolutely piss ball.
This is like.
To be honest with you, all the men at Wildcard politely.
Yeah, we hide in the pub.
That's what I
politely
assumed
bow
would
out for
happen.
the day.
You hide in the pub.
Yeah, we hide in the
I mean,
pub.
that sounds terrible. Will.
No,
I don't know how you cope.
they do all politely bow out for the day. It's a day when.
Well, it
think
sounds
last
like there wouldn't
year-
be any room for them.
No, last year.
To be honest with you, it's a day where there's no men to be found in the
I think last year-
and that's how we run it at Wildcard. So the women rule the roost.
Our intention is kind of the same thing. It's Rachel's ship. We'll let her do what she wants, but we just feel if we dial in, say hello, and then let the guys do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I think
we don't
last
wanna,
year all the brewers
be
had the
involved.
male brewers got sent to the pub and they had to do their
There was
they did their courses. They did
No,
their
you
health
didn't.
and
No,
safety.
catch
and
up
all
on
that.
online training.
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
being nice. I found them all hiding in the office together. They were all in the office together. Yeah.
Arms linked.
Can we come out?
Can we load out again?
All the women at Brew York are phenomenal.
They are exactly. Good
You may
point.
be somewhat biased, Joe, but I do agree, honestly. Okay.
So
Shall
we've
we?
got a few questions. haven't we?
We'll do a few final questions before we do what would ordinarily be our close. But of course, we have another beer to drink.
Oh yeah, bring the final beer. Bring the final beer. Let's bring it.
Yeah.
Let's sap and do
Yeah,
the final
exactly.
question.
Right, let's get it going
So-
then. So not a question. Someone would just like you to know that they love your book. So Ian says, yeah, tell Jaeger I love her book. There we go.
Hey, good job we prepared, eh?
I'm not sure who this is directed to, but it's, could you use Islay barrels? So I'm a big whiskey drinker. My preferred whiskey of choice is Islay. But Islay it's phenolic, it's peaty, it's smoky, it's massively overpowering. There's not too many beers that could stand up to that kind of barrel aging.
We're not calling you small, Anne, sorry. Can we have some small glasses? Please.
So yeah, I love Islay. In fact, I remember.
And some of the fancy wine style glasses.
Do you remember pre-commercial brewing? We went to a beer festival in Newcastle, and we had a beer that was released by, and Stu won't mind me saying this, Yeasty Boys.
Yeah.
And they do a beer called Xerax, have I got that right?
Yeah.
Which is made from 100% peated malt, so peated malt that you would make whiskey from. they turned into a beer.
Oh,
yeah.
oh
And,
God, when we were
and
in
the merest
Denmark.
amount of that is going to give you a phenolic PT TCP-like character. And they went 100% and made this beer. And we bought a third between three of us, and we couldn't finish the third.
This is
He has a photo of me sipping this beer going,
you won't recognise him as well. His hair, he's got like a tight cropped haircut.
you genuinely wouldn't reckon. I'm sure he'll pull this photo out
tried that
later,
beer, it
much
was
to my
intense.
If my
amusement.
camera wasn't there,
Yeah.
I would. Yeah.
And then actually, next time we encountered that beer was when we were all in Copenhagen, because they were pouring it there.
Yeah, they brought a bottle especially, I think.
So yeah, sometimes something can be great for one thing, but not necessarily great for another. I love an Islay whiskey. For me, it's too challenging a flavour to have alongside a beer.
Do you produce smoked beers?
We do smoke beers, but more on the delicate end of the scale, not full on like kind of Rausch beer type thing. I'm talking like 10, 15%.
Jay made a. Can you remember that time we smoked all that malt outside for that TV program? Remember that? We got that weird upside down bin smoker. Jager made
I had to do a Tudor.
Traditional.
You were trying to be proper heritage,
like a heritage brew.
Yeah.
And one of the things I had to take into account was the fact that a lot of the malt would have been dried over smoke.
Yeah, there was no
Or
such
fire.
thing as pale malt back then.
Yeah, there's things pale malt, so
yeah.
everything would have been brown and slightly smoky. So okay, how do we do this in the brewery? And I hadn't ordered any smoked malt, so we got this little smoker on the go.
So we built a
Smoked
smoker
malt,
by
yeah.
drilling loads of holes in some stainless steel bins.
It works.
Then built a fire underneath it, put the malt in that. It was good.
What do you? If we
Lee's off to
leave some
Whitby,
to send around the room.
the kipper smoke in Central, he could have smoked it in the kipper.
Oh, the kippers are amazing.
Hang on, yeah, 'cause the others.
Keep some around the room.
Oh, don't worry about everyone around the room.
Sure, I'll go for it.
We'll have it.
Right, so apologies to you, those online. I can tell you it smells amazing. I suspect it's also going to taste amazing. Oh, it does smell good.
Yeah,
It's really good. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
I'll get my pins out of there without falling over.
Oh, it's awful. You won't want it at home anyway. No,
Are you sure?
it's very, very, very nice.
Cheers.
That's so much my kind of thing. You would like my lambic collection
Yeah.
downstairs.
Okay, nice.
Oh wow. Don't give it all away.
Cheers. Sorry,
I'm
I'm trying to get around the whole
I've
room.
only had a little sip and I'm almost out.
Cheers.
Genuinely.
Pleasure.
Well, look. He's got way more than me. Yeah,
Ignore him. It'll only make him go to the loo.
Cheers, mate.
yeah again.
All right, so we'll carry on with the questions. So, what breweries would you like to collab with that you've not had the opportunity to do so with yet?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think because we're quite in a lucky position that we've collabed with a lot of people who we would like super duper love to in the UK. So I would think around about lots of Belgian breweries. So I would love, my dream would be like Cantillon.
Yeah.
That would be my dream.
Yeah.
And my dream would be in the US like Jester King. That'd be my dream. So
I didn't realise you were so big into the funk.
I literally wrote a book about it.
Well, I know that. But yeah.
So I've taken that as you've completed the UK after today. We've ticked the
After
last one
today.
ticked off after today. So now you need to complete the Europe and the world.
I get from your book, but as wildcard, you've not done that many releases, or have I completely missed them?
Yes. So this is our. So this would be our. So we've got lots in the cellar. So we've had our barrel aging project for a while, but as you know, with barrel aged beers, so we have the light side, we have the dark side. So we have the all the Impy stouts in various kinds of barrels, so whiskey, rum, brandy, all sorts. And then we have the sour side, which we're really focusing on kind of Gers styles, like lambics and fruity stuff. And I'm just not going to release it till it's ready, if that makes sense. So it's a project that's
3 years upwards, yeah.
Yes, so it's a project that's years and years and years in the making, and this is going to be the next release from it.
It's beautiful.
So
Yeah,
it's
really beautiful.
really lovely, isn't it? So it's one of those things where, you know, it's all like, we do so many beers, like commercially, stuff we have to sell to keep the lights on, and also stuff we want to do, but also like stuff like this is the icing on the cake. It's the stuff that we do because we want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we had the privilege of going to Allagash across in Maine, and their big thing is Allagash White. We come full circle. The wheat beer. So they do them and New Belgium do the 2 American examples of the wheat beer.
Yeah.
And the guy there, John, I'm going to forget his blooming surname, but he does all of that so he can do this. So he sells a ridiculous amount of that stuff. And he has got the most incredible barrel aging project. I've never seen so many foods, different types of unique vessels. Like, I don't even know what these things are.
Yeah, we the kind of the spontaneous ferment saison, the kind of the fresh base for the blend that goes into this.
Oh, the cuvee, yeah.
Yeah, so our cuvee, so it's made on an ongoing basis and blended into a steel tank, and that's kind of what we're using it for. And
Do you kind of Solero it?
Yeah, I mean, it gets blended into each other as we're going along, and yeah, it gets it's like it gets picked at a bit, you know, like it's in the tank, but it's like yeah, the brewers are keen at taking kegs off, so we've got some for a Friday night, and like
Solera, for those that don't know, it's a concept
Nice
of
ice cream.
it is a nice ice cream, but it's you create something like a golden sour, and then you keep it there as a kind of a base beer. And you take a bit out, you blend it into whatever you're doing at that time. You then add some raw wort back into it, and you keep it going, and this thing just keeps going and going and going over time.
Like your sourdough.
yeah.
Like a sour,
So in fact, that's exactly
very much
how
the
it's
beer
described,
beer equivalent of the sourdough culture.
So and it's why. So the first beer on this project was our Cuvée Saison, which is exactly the kind of beer you describe. And I originally made it as a blend to blend in with our Guerzes, because you need a bit of youth against all that age. We were talking about blending in young beers earlier, and it was just so good on its own that we decided to release it solo. And it's really a celebration of lactic acid and the different variations and the different nuances within that particular beer. But then when you begin to add it in with the heavily complicated other kind of bacterias and yeast, it gets very, very interesting. And all these kind of beers are just all flavour-led. Everything has to be, it just has to taste, like the standard is too high where we are in the UK. Belgium are literally our neighbours. I have to go to them, those brewers, with a straight face. You know what I mean? So
On that specific beer then, how did you decide what fruit to go with and volume of fruit?
Jaeger, Jay gets final say, right? But there's a blending panel. So there was, Jay presented various blends in terms of proportion between the older 3-year beer under wood and the new blends and the one year stuff. So kind of came up with a few options and then kind of sat everybody down, or not everybody, but a bunch of the people from the brewery down, and asked us kind of what we thought about the different ones and to kind of blind taste them and rate them. And then kind of at the end ignored us all and went away. But yeah, there is...
No, I'm not going to lie, I was fully prepared to overrule the panel, but they chose the one I wanted.
We chose the right one. We chose the right one.
Yeah, but
so there's with the blend, there was definitely an element of like...
But days like that where you can truly involve everybody in the brewery.
Really fun.
Like we had Sean Knight on from Siren maybe 6 months ago, possibly a little longer, and he was talking about what they do for their maiden. So they do an annual release where they've got lots of stuff in different types of barrels, and once a year the entire team gets together and they bring all of the barrels together, and we're like, well, we're going to go with a bit of that, and they do loads of different things, and it sounds like the most. I was like, I want to quit my job and go work for them.
But this is concept of the blendery. It's something that's relatively new in the UK anyway. About you don't actually have a brewery. You just blend.
Yeah.
Another really fun thing that we're really hoping to get into, and now we've got some more mature barrels, definitely something exciting, is the Belgians and some of the guys in the UK are really good at it. The real game is the swaps, right? Is once you've got a bit of equity in your program in terms of like barrel aged sours, you can ring up the other guys and be like, we've got a couple of barrels of this, if you want to come and have a look at them, maybe we do a little swapsy and then do some blends.
Maybe after this you come and see ours then.
Yeah, for sure.
There's not many.
The other great...
we don't have many sour ones, but yeah, we have a few.
The other really exciting thing about the, from a brewing perspective, about the spontaneously fermented beer is, like, I love the barrel aged stuff, but I'm really, really passionate about the kind of like fresh lactic beer. And like it changes all the time, changes a lot, especially in its early stages. It's the flavour when it first comes out, like it changes almost like week to week, you know what I mean? As you kind of draw down on the big tank, put it into kegs and stuff like that. Like, it's a real ride as things go along. It's quite a lot of
One of
fun.
the things I'm always a little bit sceptical of, I love sour beer. I hate the fact that some of it's so intense I get indigestion for 2 days afterwards. And the beer that everyone at home didn't get to try, but we got to try, it was really, really nice, really easy going. It wasn't so acidic that I literally can't sleep at night. But
it's not about acidity, it's about complexity.
Yeah,
and that has layers. That's what you're looking for, is layers.
And that's what I really liked about that. So can we not share it with everyone else next time? Can we just?
Yeah.
So a couple more questions, then we'll wrap up, and then we can do some questions off camera if everyone's good for it.
Yeah, I want to conclude on some good ones.
Is that on sale?
Yeah, so
yes.
the raspberry.
Yeah, but no.
So if you go on the Wildcard Brewery website, you'll be able to get hold of the cuvée, which is the
Cuvée
ongoing
Saison, yeah.
cuvée saison, the ongoing blend of fresh beer. There's also the Imperial Stout,
Which is called Imperial Stout, isn't it?
which is just called straight Imperial Stout. That's the kosher beer, and the raspberry cuvée. I finished the label. It's gone away to the printer. The barrels are in the warehouse.
It'll be
shortly.
going in the next couple of weeks if we're going live.
We got the special early
Yeah,
release.
it's not got like But it's been in bottle for about a year or so.
Something
It's been in bottle, and it was in tank for about 9 months with the raspberries. So, and then it was in barrel before that for 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
Pure vanity. Pure vanity. We won't get
Yeah.
anything out of producing
we make
this.
no money.
So
No,
Will's
that's
got no excuse for not saying the label out.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
No,
I've had years. It's been through several versions.
You've had years to get the label. Come on.
I've written. It's been such a long time that this series of beers has its own font, which I've like as in a
He's
full
made his own
font
font.
set that I have done from
I need to
nothing.
get a chalk pen out and just write on the bottle. So
Yeah. Could have done.
Yeah, well, I think you've both described it perfectly in that it's a project of love, and it's a vanity project.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
don't make a lot of money doing this kind of
No.
thing.
Yeah,
you,
no.
you do it because you want to do it, and it keeps your interest up when you're doing the stuff that maybe generates the money. Yeah. Okay. I presume this one's targeted at you, Jager. Do you work with colleges and schools to encourage girls to go into the brewing industry? And it looks like that's coming from various people, but Sandy was also named.
I do a number of talks at universities. Schools is tricky because the thing I'm an expert in is alcohol. So
good point. Maybe
it's,
can't be seen to be encouraging that kind of thing.
And also, I'm also very awkward around children. So there's that. I did a college talk once, and I was just so embarrassed by myself. I was just so embarrassed, the whole thing. Anyway, I don't
She's
want
just
to talk
very
about that.
formal. You know what I mean with children.
I don't have any kids. It's
Very, very
I'm not
formal.
there yet.
Overly formal.
So no, I do a lot of talks at universities. So I did Nottingham Trent in December. I did. I think I do quite a lot. I do, but it's not something I really shout about too much. But yeah, I do. Yes.
You did Loughborough
exactly.
recent.
Yeah.
One for you and me, Wen. Any plans for Empress, but with the inclusion of coffee? That could work.
Possibly. We've done a few coffee version beers. So Lee hates coffee, like on a drinking basis. I love it. Real
No,
coffee.
but I'm weird, as in I would never drink coffee, but you put coffee in a beer, and I will quite gladly enjoy it.
Whereas I'm very much.
I can't really explain that, but that's where I am.
I love coffee in a beer. I love real coffee but I can't stand instant coffee. So I'm a tea drinker, but good coffee is great. Same on beer. 100%. We did tiramisu, obviously. Shitty pun again for our...
Not like us.
But tiramisu Tonkoko was great, and I think the thing is, with Empress, it's a bit difficult because that's the big release. If we bring out a really high strength, I say that, and we brought a 12% Tonkoko out, didn't we? So.
No, the highest we've gone with it is 15.
Yeah, well, no excuses then. Yeah, we're going to bring a coffee version out. I don't know what it's going to be.
Give us some time
I'll
on that
choose
one.
the coffee.
Or maybe, well, you can age on coffee, so that's an option. Well, this could be for any of us. What do we do with the barrels after we've used them?
Use them again.
Furniture. Both.
Use them again.
So it depends, sometimes some of the fresh barrels we buy 100% get used again. It just takes longer to get the similar type of flavour out of them. But also, you'll notice a lot of barrels in and around our venues. That's because we try and repurpose them where we can. They're amazing pieces of furniture.
But one of the really hard things when you get into like intense barrel aging, it's about it's less about what you put in the barrel itself. It's more about how you can time the brewery to empty the barrel and then fill it same day, so you can get that second, that third, that fourth.
When
If they
dry out,
dehydrate,
They dehydrate, it's a nightmare.
Oh,
So you have to get your knowledge of working with wood up. So similar to like sailors and like all this sort of stuff. Like honestly, how hydrate wood.
Yeah.
Like you need to know how to do that to a certain standard, and that can be quite tricky. But they say you can use the same barrel, and bear in mind, by the time we get hold of it in the beer industry, it's often third or fourth use. So it's often been to various other industries. They say you can use it up to 10 times. But
yeah, we got leave it for 4 years. Yeah. 4 years.
We do 1 to 2, because the reason you can use it multiple times, if you're doing a spirit-based one, so some of the spirits penetrate into the wood, and then what you're counting is over time the temperature fluctuates, it goes up and down, and as the temperature does that, it sucks the beer into the wood and it pushes it back out of the wood, and in doing so it picks up the spirit character. But there's only a limited amount of spirit character there.
Yeah.
So we do that for like 2 generations, but as we said earlier, we don't do subtle, we're like sledgehammer flavour-wise. So,
but then there were lots of other industries who were taking ex beer barrels and doing the same,
and then trying to return
and
it
then
back
trying
to
to
beer.
get the beer. So it's
and some of that is
Symbiotic.
good, and some of it's marketed. I see like Glenford doing a beer, a whiskey IPA. It's like, no, there's no beer that is going to step through the flavour of a whiskey. That is marketing. Yeah.
Last question, come on.
Last one is, can you tell us another birthday bash brewery?
Secret.
And for once, I'm going to hold my lips, and I'm not going to say any more.
Pete,
Can we at least say when the next announcement
Pete,
is?
who's been announced so far?
Monday is we've only announced Lervig so far.
Lervig, the only one we've announced? Pete, who's second up? Because we can tell people, because they're going to find out on Monday anyway.
No, they're going to tune into social media and find out on Monday.
Oh, you're harsh. By which I think he means he's forgotten.
So huge thank you for everyone who's joined in tonight. Live audience, thanks for our guests. And
Thank you all. As always, if you have feedback, send it through to info@brewyork.co.uk. See you next. Well, no, we won't. Well, we kind of will see you next time. We'll be in the US in vest and shorts. But Rachel, our head of marketing, will be hosting this next time. We will join you briefly from the US.
cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye.